Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal. See playlist for other chapters and novels. Join now our Telegram channel now and enjoy exclusive early access. t.me/blood_immortal_official. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 461, I trust Uncle Lin the most. Chapter 461, I trust Uncle Lin the most. What are you laughing at? Is it because you're feeling extremely happy over my acceptance to be your friend? Zhan-Er looked at Lin Fan with utmost anticipation. Kids had their own sense of pride as well. This was Zhan-Er's own way of being bashful. Lin Fan looked at Zhan-Er and eventually relented into a smile while fondling her head. Yes, that's right. I would very much like to be your friend. Lin Fan had always had a soft spot for cute little kids. But of course, this had nothing to do with the weird fetishes of creepy uncles. It was just that beautiful things were always something to be admired in the world. Hee, I knew it. Upon hearing this reply from Lin Fan, Zhan-Er beamed out into a wide smile immediately, as her furry tail swirled behind her as well. You're my friend from now on then. You can just call me Zhan-Er. And don't worry about it. I'll always find you to play, so that you won't feel lonely. Waving goodbye to Lin Fan, Zhan-Er skipped her way off. Looking at the back view of this kid leaving, Lin Fan could not help but break into a smile. In this place, there were no emotional attachments for Lin Fan. In fact, it was extremely rare to even find a high-leveled beast in the woods these days. It was as difficult as striking the lottery. Lin Fan had originally had the intentions to leave. At the same time, it was also because Lin Fan understood that he was now a fugitive wanted by the ancient race. There was always the underlying threat related to that if he continued residing here. With the events of Zhan-Er right now, Lin Fan was even more certain that he had to leave this place as soon as possible. This was a peaceful place that he shouldn't overstay at no matter what. His target had to be always fixed on the ancient race, and taking them down. That was the only way to bring peace to this world. Even if the heavens will of the ancient saint world was on the side of the ancient race, Lin Fan had the confidence to take down the heavens will of this world eventually as well. So what if it were high and mighty? The heavens will of Xuanwang world was high and mighty as well. But it was taken down by Lin Fan all the same. Within a small little house, Zhan-Er laid on her warm bed and flipped left and right. Her cute little face was grinning ear to ear. I've got another friend now. I'm so happy, Zhan-Er smiled sweetly to herself. Next day, at the break of dawn, Lin Fan woke up from his cultivation state. He packed his stuff and prepared to leave this place. The more peaceful this place was, the more he had to leave. He did not want to see any tragedy befalling this place because of him. Just as Lin Fan opened his wooden door, he was greeted with a smiley face that was as bright as the sun itself. Uncle, Zhan-Er stood at his doorway addressing him in a lovely tone. Hands behind her back, her tail wagged excitedly from side to side. Could you take me out to the woods? Zhan-Er really wants to go out there to see how things are like there. But because the beasts are way too strong, I've always been afraid to do so. Looking at Zhan-Er before him, Lin Fan sighed helplessly. His face then turned into a smile. All right, no problem. Lin Fan shrugged his head, thinking in his mind, oh well, forget it. Just this once then, I'll leave tomorrow. Looking at that happy face of Zhan-Er, Lin Fan's heart melted at that moment. How could he not even accede to such a small request? Yay, I knew that uncle is the best. Zhan-Er hugged Lin Fan's thighs happily, and rubbed her cheeks against Lin Fan's thighs endearingly. Looking at Zhan-Er's happy disposition, Lin Fan could not help but break into a smile. She knew how to please others from such a young age. But of course, he wasn't that strong to deserve this amount of affection from her yet. Once he grew even stronger, that was when she would have really reaped the benefits of this. As the villagers caught sight of Lin Fan walking by, they beckoned to him with friendliness. Looking at that happy little Zhan-Er that was following behind Lin Fan, they broke out into laughter as well. Zhan-Er, where are you off to now? All these friendly villagers teased Zhan-Er. After all, they knew that she wasn't too friendly with this human just days earlier. But now, she was constantly behind Lin Fan's back. Zhan'er looked around at the villagers and stuck out her little tongue. It was as though she was saying, hee hee, Zhan'er's not gonna bother with you guys. In the mountains. Wow, Uncle Lin, you're so awesome. Lin Fan had placed Zhan'er to sit on a tall tree. From her position, she broke into a loud clap as she saw Uncle Lin slice down a beast with a single chop. No velp in .c ohm. Lin Fan tossed his long hair and smiled naturally. Zhan'er, keep a low profile. That's just a lowly common beast. No, it's not. Everyone could only barely kill a normal beast by cooperating together. But Uncle Lin can do so with such ease. Uncle Lin's the best. Zhan'er clapped her hands as her eyes sparkled with excitement and pride. Lin Fan could not have asked for anything more, a cute little audience who enjoyed his performances. It was especially sweet listening to that tone of awe from Zhan'er. Lin Fan's ego could not swell any bigger than this. Zhan'er, low profile, low profile. These are really just normal beasts and are not worth mentioning. Back in the days, I could take down an entire nest of ancient beasts with just a single swing of my axe. When Lin Fan started his bullsh tea, no one else could compare to him. Zhan'er was also taking in the bullsh tea like it was free. To Zhan'er, there was no one more trustworthy than Lin Fan. Therefore, she just clapped her hands and exclaimed happily. Uncle Lin, that's too great. Zhan'er, do you believe Uncle Lin? Lin Fan smiled to Zhan'er. Of course, I trust Uncle Lin the most. As though she was wound up by a spring, her head bobbed up and down repeatedly as she nodded fervently. Good, come, I'll show you something more spectacular. Lin Fan suddenly thought of a new way to attract beasts. Something more spectacular? She asked curiously. Lin Fan beckoned with his hand as Zhan'er leapt down from her tree happily. Lin Fan started explaining the circumstances to Zhan'er. To Lin Fan, this was the first time he was going to experiment with this. He had thought that Zhan'er would be afraid and chicken out of this. But of course, whether or not she chickened out did not matter. Lin Fan just wanted to show Zhan'er something more exciting, that was all. But who knew that she would agree to it in a heartbeat? That did kind of surprise Lin Fan. Uncle Lin, I trust you the most. You're a hero, I know that you'll protect me. Zhan'er looked at Lin Fan with her cutesy eyes as she remarked with seriousness. Lin Fan looked back at Zhan'er and nodded his head eventually, all right. Good, I'll definitely protect you properly. I swear. Smooch. Zhan'er hugged Lin Fan's head happily and kissed his cheek. Yep, I definitely trust you, Uncle Lin. To be kissed by a small little girl from the fox race did leave Lin Fan feeling a little embarrassed. This girl was just as cute as his little disciples back home. Now that he had ascended for a period of time, he did really miss them. He wondered how they were doing right now. Uncle Lin, hurry up and hide. It's time for Zhan'er to perform. Looking at Lin Fan who was deep in his thoughts, Zhan'er wrung at Lin Fan's arm. Alright. Lin Fan chuckled and entered stealth mode behind Zhan'er. He did not know whether or not the beasts would take the bait. Uncle Lin, where did you go? Looking at Lin Fan who had disappeared suddenly, Zhan'er called out curiously. Don't worry, I'm just right beside you. Lin Fan spoke out from his stealth. Okay, don't worry, Zhan'er isn't afraid. Chapter 462, The Final Day Before Departing. Chapter 462, The Final Day Before Departing. A series of cries rang out through the mountainous valleys. This was no doubt a bait, a delicious piece of meat waiting to be savored by others. Zhan'er was rubbing her eyes and bawling outright like a little rabbit that had lost her way. This was the moment where a big bad wolf should appear and devour this little delicacy into his tummy hole. Why is nothing happening at all? Zhan'er rubbed her eyes and peeked out at the surroundings. Everything was silent and quiet, without any movements at all. Hidden in stealth mode, Lin Fan was all smiles for this little Zhan'er before him. In terms of acting skills, this kid was pretty darn good. That looked realistic as sh*t. He wondered how this kid did it. It was as though tears could just drop out of her eyes for free. What an impressive child this was. Zhan'er raised the pitch of her cries ever louder at this moment. In fact, those cries only signaled helplessness within them. PSHEW. Suddenly, a sound rang out from the woods. It was as though something had darted nearby and was surveying carefully. For a moment, that frail little body of Zhan'er shuddered for a moment. However, the thought of Uncle Lin beside her calmed her down once more as she raised her pitch yet another notch. Boo-hoo. Lin Fan looked around and grinned. To think that it would work. There seems to be a number of beasts now. He wondered what their cultivation states were like. But on second thought, he should just scrap that thought. This was near the boundaries, so there shouldn't be any beasts that were too strong lurking around. Uncle Lin, they seem to be here. As the commotion in the woods grew, Zon started cowering her fragile body a little again. Yes, don't worry, I'm beside you. Lin Fan was smiling. Okay, she nodded her head and bawled ever more helplessly. To these ancient beasts, that sound was absolutely delicious, baiting them in with alluring charm. Bam! Just then, an ancient beast lunged out of the woods with tremendous force. That muscular body and malevolent face gave Zon a big shock. Ancient beast, moonlight howling wolf, utmost celestial full cultivation state. Lin Fan knew that there were not many high-leveled beasts around this area. The strongest they could get were mostly utmost celestials. Rar, N-O-Vel-B in .C Ohm. The ground shook as yet another towering beast appeared right before Zon face. Ancient beast, single-eyed giant ape, Earth celestial lower level. Looking at the beast, Lin Fan was pleasantly surprised. To think that an Earth celestial beast would be lured out. Not bad. One by one, the beasts came forth. It was apparent that the existence of this tasty little kid had attracted their attentions. Roar, the single-eyed giant ape hollered out at some of the surrounding beasts. It was as though he was saying, "This is my prey. All of you get lost." AWP, AWP, the other beasts yelled out in disgruntlement. However, the single-eyed giant ape was way stronger than them. It was not as though they could snatch the food away from him anyway. The single-eyed giant ape smirked as he saw these tactful beasts letting him have his way. He then glared straight at Zon. Even though this prey might be a tad small, he could smell her delicious scent. This was a gourmet food for sure. You Uncle Lin, looking at these beasts before her, Zon face was pale. However, the sensation of a hand resting gently on her shoulders eased her small little soul immediately. That's right, but Uncle Lin is here. I won't be afraid. Zon shrugged her small little head. She then looked at these beasts and stuck out her tongue. Come on, come on. I'm not afraid of you guys. Roar, the single-eyed giant ape howled. How dare this small little thing be so insolent? He then pounced out at her. Uncle Lin, he's coming. Looking at the leap of the single-eyed giant ape, Zon shouted. It's all right, you'll be fine. Just then, Lin Fan appeared out of his stealth mode. With a bright flash of his eternal axe, he slammed down on the single-eyed giant ape. Ugh, blood sprayed through the skies. In that single instance, the single-eyed giant ape was sliced clean by Lin Fan. That towering figure fell to the ground with a thud, motionless. We won. At the scene before her, Zon jumped up and down with joy. Uncle Lin, you're just way too great. Looking at the elated look on Zon face, Lin Fan tossed his hair back and replied calmly, it's nothing much. Watch closely now, this is all your credit. Looking at how the single-eyed giant ape was sliced in one single strike, the other beasts howled out in fear. Turning heels, they tried sprinting away from this place. But of course, how could Lin Fan give them the opportunity to do so? All of you, stay here. Like a butcher's knife, Lin Fan's single slice with his eternal axe's swing reaped in the beasts one after another. Ding, congratulations on killing Earth's celestial lower-level beast. Ding, experience points plus 500. Ding, congratulations on killing utmost celestial full cultivation beast. Ding, experience points plus 80. Lin Fan was in ecstasy right now. This was the best sort of feeling, the feeling of experience points gushing through his body. How was that? Exciting. After Lin Fan had slain all the beasts, he turned around and took a look at Zon. Yep, she nodded her head repeatedly while her little heart was thumping furiously. Uncle Lin, you're really, really the bestest best. None of these beasts are a match for you. While Lin Fan only grinned lightly, his heart was brimming with pride. That was for sure. If these beasts could be a match for yours truly, then yours truly would have been out in the pugilistic world for nothing. Zon, you were the one who got us all of these beasts today. Let's head back and show them all to the village chief and the others. Lin Fan smiled. Yep, Zon is not useless at all. Zon clapped her hands happily. She then raised her chin and beamed at Lin Fan with those pretty, cute features of hers. Lin Fan kept the corpses in his storage and headed back to the village with Zon. Upon reaching the village and taking out the corpses, the villagers were filled with astonishment once more. After realizing that it was due to Zon credit, the praises were rained upon her as well. This had Zon leaping around in happiness with flowers blossoming in her heart. She could almost fly with every step she took. Seeing this, the village chief was extremely heartened. From Lin Fan's face, the village chief could tell that he was about to leave soon. However, He did not inquire him personally regarding it. After all, that was going to be a fact. However, the fact that he had brought so many changes and joy to the village was something that the village chief was really comforted about. I'm not the strong one. Even though I can't deny that my credit is pretty significant, Uncle Lin did a lot too. Zan was now in the center of everyone's attention. She beamed and commented to the villagers around her. These villagers naturally knew of the truth behind it. However, they were all willing to play along and praise Zan as long as this could cheer her up. Breaking out from the circle of people, Zan ran over to Lin Fan and beckoned to him. Lin Fan bent down, allowing Zan to whisper in his ears. Uncle Lin, see, Zan isn't selfish. I won't take the praise alone. Did you see me asking them to praise you too? I'm such a good person, right? Looking at this cheeky little mischievous Zan Lin Fan could not help but grin. Lin Fan then had Zan stay within the village and headed out into the woods once more. Today was the last day. Once tomorrow arrived, he was going to continue forth on his journey. A peaceful life could dull one's fighting spirit after all. Chapter 463, The Strongest Systems Hidden Buff. Chapter 463, The Strongest Systems Hidden Buff. Firmament. Boom. A bright flash of light from the eternal axe dissipated in the skies. Under the formidable slash of the eternal axe, the beasts ahead were annihilated without any words. Ding. Congratulations on killing utmost celestial upper-level beast. Ding. Congratulations on killing utmost celestial full cultivation beast. Ding. Holy shit, that was dangerous. To think that I would land in a nest of beasts. As Lin Fan treaded through the forest, he had no intentions of going easy on anything. After all, these beasts were ferocious beyond anything else. However, even though he did encounter plenty of low-leveled beasts, the amount of experience points he could gain were pretty limited. At the same time, Lin Fan was starting to realize an issue. Beasts that were Earth Celestial and above showed signs of intellect and wisdom. In fact, this very issue might be the reason why most of those high-leveled and smarter beasts would leave the boundaries and gather in the central regions. After all, places which were crowded were usually more affluent. This was something that these beasts sought for as well. Absorb. The dense amount of demonic chi was all absorbed within the demon city. The core of this semi-finished, pseudo-legendary weapon, Demon City, was the big ancient demon. And the big ancient demon himself was the king of the demon race. However, Lin Fan did not know if the demon race was the same type as the ancient beasts. Or, could it be that they were once part of the ancient beasts as well? They might have evolved to a point where they broke free and became an extraordinary race of their own. Ever since he ascended to the ancient saint world, Lin Fan had come in contact with many different sorts of races. At the same time, he had learned that there were all sorts of wonders in this world. Therefore, it was hard to say. The big ancient demon might indeed just be an evolved race that had originally stemmed from ancient beasts. Looking at the corpses of the beasts around him, Lin Fan flicked his robes and swept them all into his storage. He had already made up his mind to leave tomorrow. Therefore, he was just putting in more effort so that he could kill more beasts and provide more food for the village. Even though the villagers themselves couldn't be considered as absolute weaklings, they were still inadequate compared to the ancient beasts. Therefore, each time they had to group up together to hunt down a beast was still a pretty dangerous task for them all together. Lin Fan was especially concerned about Zan. This cute little fox brat, this sweet little young girl, she was the most adorable kid he had met since he came to the ancient saint world, and she was really lovable for the villagers as well. Even though she might seem like a proud kid, that only served to enhance her cuteness to Lin Fan. In fact, the thought of keeping her by his side as a disciple after he took down the ancient race did cross Lin Fan's mind. With such a cute little fox girl around him, life would definitely not get too boring. Creak, creak. Just then, there was a little movement in the woods before him as the grass ruffled. Swinging out his eternal axe, Lin Fan cleaved a deep trench in the ground. A rabbit-like animal stood froze in its tracks, as though it was completely rooted with fear by this scene. What's this thing? Lin Fan took up this snow-white little thing. This rabbit-like thing was only the size of his palm. 2 long ears and red eyes. Wasn't this just a rabbit? Hey, interesting. To think that there would be such beings in the ancient saint world as well. Lin Fan looked at this little thing with immense curiosity. Harmless. Even its claws weren't sharp. All 4 of its limbs were short and stumpy too. This looks really cute. Zan should like this. Dangling this cute little being, Lin Fan thought of her. Kids were all prone to forgetting things. Perhaps the presence of this cute little thing by Zan's side could ease the pain of him leaving her. Rabbit, you better be obedient, or I'll roast you over fire. Lin Fan slung the eternal axe on his shoulders. At the same time, he headed back to the village happily while dangling the rabbit on his finger. Even though it was still pretty early, he was going to leave tomorrow. Hence, he wanted to spend some time playing with Zon while imparting some moves to her at the same time. After all, the ancient saint world was fraught with danger. It was hard to say whether anything bad would happen in the future. The sun shone brightly in the skies. Lin Fan hummed a tune while he walked within the woods with ease. How. Standing before the village entrance, that relaxed face of Lin Fan was no longer. All the blood drained from his face as he stood there motionless like a fool. The ground was spilled with blood while flames raged everywhere in the village. Every single house was stained with blood stains. Lin Fan's face turned extremely grim as he rushed in. The village was extremely messy, as though it had just been pillaged. The only things that were laying all over the village were the corpses of the villagers. Each and every one of those familiar-looking faces were now lifeless corpses spread out all over the place. Lin Fan spotted a body ahead of him. That was the village chief. He hurried forth. Village chief. What's going on? But it was too late. The village chief had long passed away. On that frail, elderly face was a look of fury. There was a deep wound in his chest, and all his blood was dried up. Ancient race. Lin Fan seethed. He gripped his fist. His face changed as he suddenly recalled Zon. Suddenly, Lin Fan burst up from the ground and looked around anxiously. Goddammit, nothing must happen to her. Lin Fan was howling within his heart as he checked out the bodies one by one. No, there's hope. Not this either. Hope, please give me some hope. Lin Fan's body was shivering uncontrollably right now. The rabbit that was dangling in his hands was crying out because of Lin Fan's grip strength. But right now, nothing registered within his mind. His only priority is to find Zon. No, nothing. Zon, where have you gone to? Lin Fan screamed out in the desolate village. No, she must have been taken away by the ancient race, that's all. There should still be hope. Thinking of how cute Zon was, the ancient race shouldn't do anything that harsh to her. The moment this hope appeared in Lin Fan's mind, it grew stronger by the second. Lin Fan was so nervous that he was pushing this hope to be a truth in his mind. No, I must hurry and chase after them. Or it'll be too late. Lin Fan turned around and prepared to head out immediately. Uncle Lin. Just as Lin Fan was sprinting off, a weak and feeble voice rang out from some bushes nearby. Zon. Lin Fan's entire mind woke up with a startle as he moved away everything that was near the bushes. No. From the yellow ground beneath the bushes, fresh blood began to flow out downwards. Lin Fan shook his head massively and continued shoving the debris away furiously. But the sight before him caused his entire blood to run cold. There was a half-mooned crescent saber that was pierced through Zon's body, as fresh blood gushed out from the wound. How could this be? Lin Fan reared his head into the skies as he shut his eyes close. He did not dare to believe the sight that was right in his face. You Uncle Lin. That cute little devilish face of Zon was now paler than a sheet of paper. Tears were dripping from those big, wide eyes of hers. Grandpa, he told me to stay here and not make a sound, but it hurts. Zon feels pain. Zon's face was squinting really hard as she bit down on her lower lips with her blood-stained teeth. It was as though she had been bearing the pain all this while. How could this be? Looking at the state Zon was in, that firm heart of Lin Fan could not stop crumbling in sorrow. He tried his best to infuse life force over to Zon from his mythical parasol tree. However, the moment the life force entered Zon, it gushed out as quickly as it entered and dissipated out into the world. You Uncle Lin. Zon is strong, even though it hurts. Zon did not make a single sound. Am I great? The light in Zon's eyes were gradually fading as she closed them gently. Yes, you're great. Zon is the greatest. The only thing that Lin Fan could feel right now was pain, a deep, tormenting pain. It was a really long time since he had last felt pain like this. The reason why Lin Fan had been working so hard to become stronger was so that he would never have to experience pain like this ever again in his life. You Uncle Lin, me and you. We are friends. Thud. Those feebly, thin hands of Zon's tried to caress Lin Fan's cheeks. However, like a kite that has lost its strings, they dropped onto the ground lifelessly before they could reach him. With that, the final shimmer of light disappeared entirely from Zon's eyes. Zon. Lin Fan could feel himself about to explode right now. How could a cute, lovely girl as such have to go through such a tormenting life? You mother***curs of the goddamned ancient race. Yours truly swears that I won't f***king be called a human if I don't exterminate your goddamned race of degenerates. Ding. The strongest systems hidden buff initiated. Berserk Ascension Sword. Time limit. 1 day. Chapter 464. What the hell? All of them are candidates for best actors. Chapter 464. What the hell? All of them are candidates for best actors. Within the mountainous valleys came a series of eerie voices. A small little team of ancient race tribesmen walked in the mountainous regions. That horrifying aura caused all the surrounding beasts to shiver in fear, hiding from this group of people. Haha, to think that instead of that stinking human, we would find a village for ourselves instead. One of the towering ancient race tribesmen guffawed with his hideous features. Something was dangling on his fingers, which he had robbed from the village. That feeling of slicing those ants with a single blade was exciting indeed. It's just a pity that their cultivation states were way too low to do much for us. Another one of the ancient race tribesmen laughed coldly. To him, massacring villages like this was just another casual event, just like having a meal. Out of the thousands of races of the worlds out there, he had butchered a number of them thus far. But where the hell did that human go to? If I capture him, I'll be sure to devour him viciously. Oh, but one of the women from the Wings race just now was pretty feisty. But a pity that she was a weakling and went down after just a few hits. Haha, you think that's strong? Our decanus here took down the village chief with a single slice. To this 10-man squad, every single thing that came across their way would just be massacred and robbed. Nothing was left alive after they passed by. The leader of this group was a decanus of the ancient race. He was ordered to capture that human. However, upon reaching the woods, he found nothing but the bodies of his ancient race tribesmen. After searching in this region for a few days, he came across a village instead. Now, that was something interesting to them. If that human were to bump into our dear decanus, he would definitely be so scared he would shit his. But before this ancient race tribesman guard had finished his sentence, an axe swung through the skies and cleaved his head off cleanly. All the ancient race tribesmen stopped in their tracks, stunned. Who's there? The decanus surveyed his surroundings warily, shocked by that axe that had swung out of the void from nowhere. Decanus, there! An ancient race tribesman caught sight of a shadow in the distance and exclaimed out. Okay. Looking at the figure in the distance, the ancient race decanus frowned before bursting out into wild laughter. Haha, seems like we can spare our efforts now. Someone has sent himself to our doorsteps. Human, you must have devoured some tiger guts to dare to lay your hands on my fellow tribesmen. Looking at the figure in the distance, the decanus remarked icily. Upon hearing the words of their decanus, the other ancient race tribesmen were elated as well. Human, could this be that human that they were ordered to hunt down? Human, cease and desist, surrender now, or I shall devour you personally. The ancient race decanus called out. Bam, just then, that figure from a distance appeared right before their faces. I'll make sure I'll have you begging me to spare you some mercy and kill you later on. Lin Fan seethed the words out. This was a rage that he had felt long ago. He looked around. Every single item that these ancient race tribesmen were holding belonged to the villagers. Human, just you alone. One of the ancient race tribesmen guard barked at Lin Fan. Thud, a flash of light. The 4 limbs of the guard who had just opened his mouth were severed entirely, as black blood gushed out from the wounds. Arg, a tragic cry rang through and pierced the skies. The ancient race decanus tightened his face and sent out a tremendous punch. How dare you? Bam, that punch which carried immense and boundless force found itself slamming on Lin Fan's body. HMPH, human, you've gone beyond your place. I shall have you regret that today. Feeling the sensation of his punch landing on its target, the decanus was overwhelmed with joy. However, his face changed in the next instance. How could this be? Thud, another flash of light. That pitch-black arm of the ancient race decanus flew up into the skies, as the same black blood sprayed all over the place. The moment the ancient race tribesmen guards saw their decanus's arm severed with a single move, they were completely stumped. However, these were warriors who were used to combat. There was no way back. None of you shall dream of leaving today. Looking at these ancient race tribesmen, Lin Fan did not even harbor a single thought of toying with them. The only thing he wanted was to hack them to death. Thud, arg, my arm, my leg, damn you, human, I'll fight you. With raw power, Lin Fan suppressed the entire squad. Even the decanus of the squad was nothing in Lin Fan's eyes. At this moment, the forest was a frightful place to be in, with tragic cries ringing out all over the place. Human, kill me if you've got the guts. The ancient race decanus's face was filled with fear. To think that even the 10 of them wouldn't be a match for this single person. And to think that this human would sever all their limbs, leaving them as a motionless log. HMPH, you want to die? Not so easy. Looking at these lifeless logs that were covered with blood, Lin Fan's lips curled into a grin. He leapt into the skies and entered stealth mode, waiting patiently. The ancient race decanus could not understand how this human would suddenly decide to spare them. However, he suddenly realized what was happening as he screamed out in fear. Human, kill us. They belong to the ancient race. Therefore, beasts would naturally fear and stay away from them. However, given the state they were currently in, why would any of those ancient beasts fear them? Roar. Suddenly, a wild howl appeared from the forest. Killing you is too much of a mercy for you guys. Today, you guys shall slowly experience what it feels like to be gnawed to death by beasts. Lin Fan laughed coldly. One by one, the beasts appeared before this bunch of ancient race tribesmen with their brutish auras. These ancient beasts were the most sensitive to things like the scent of blood. No, all the beasts lunged out towards these ancient race tribesmen. Ha ha ha, all of you deserve death. Seeing the scene below, Lin Fan could not stop laughing wildly. And just as an ancient race tribesman was being devoured, Lin Fan would swing down with his eternal axe, killing them. Ding, congratulations on killing ancient race decanus. Ding, hidden buff activated. Ding, experience points plus 10,000. Ding, congratulations on leveling up. Cultivation state, Earth celestial middle level. Ha 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 ha. Looking at the tragic state of these ancient race tribesmen, Lin Fan's laughter was maniacal. Zon'er, rest in peace. I'll definitely seek out revenge for you. Within that ruined village, tablets were laid all around the village. As for Zon'er's tablet, it was surrounded by fresh flowers. This once lively village was now eerily silent. Just then, the void rippled. That's an interesting fella indeed. Just then, a figure appeared above the skies in the village. Looking down at the tablets laid around, she smiled casually. Zon'er, how long more do you want to lay there for? This figure in the skies was fleeting. It was as though her body itself was filled with a seductive charm. If Lin Fan were present right now, he would definitely be stunned by these words. One by one, those tablets began to vibrate. Those supposedly dead villagers crawled out from beneath their tablets. Looking at her dirty clothes from the trench dug for her, Zon'er pouted her lips a little unhappily. With a gentle shrug, all the dust and dirt disappeared in an instant. Master, looking at who it was in the void, Zon'er floated up happily to the other party. What's wrong? You're missing that Uncle Lin of yours. Looking at this disciple of hers, the woman smiled cynically. Master, Uncle Lin is a good person. Why must we lie to him? Uncle Lin must be really sad right now. Zon'er's mouth was still pouting, evidently a little displeased. The woman looked at her disciple before looking back into the distance, ignoring her question. However, she was laughing coldly in her heart. Young man, wasting too much time on *TTING. If I don't give you some motivation, then you'd really just take your own sweet time. But what this woman had not expected was that this fellow would take such a liking to her own disciple. That was pretty unexpected. But that was good as well. Since he said that he was the hope, then he had better show some achievements. The state he was in right now was definitely far from enough. N-O-V-E in.C ohm. Chapter 465. What level of silliness is this? Chapter 465. What level of silliness is this? The time limit is 1 day, right? The 10-men squad of the ancient race laid around butchered up by Lin Fan. The stench of their blood permeated the entire place. Under the frightful aura of Lin Fan, all the beasts started retreating silently as well. But as for Lin Fan, his spirit was still extremely heated up right now. There was a burning rage that was swelling within his heart that he direly needed to release. Wielding the eternal axe in his hands, Lin Fan looked into the distance from the mountainous valleys. Right now, the only feeling he had in his heart was regret. He blamed himself for everything. He knew that he was wanted as a fugitive by the ancient race, yet he had resided within the village. He was the one who had brought their untimely demise. A streak of light burst out, tearing through the skies into the distance. From the bodies of the ancient race tribesmen, Lin Fan obtained a map that indicated a base site of the ancient race right up ahead. With all the frustration pent up in his heart, he knew that he wanted to murder every single ancient race tribesman right now. Furthermore, now that he had the buff on him, even though it was just limited to a single day, he had to make the most use out of it and level up. That way, he could tread forth with even more confidence in the future. However, he was surprised that he had not bumped into a single ancient race tribesman along the way. How could this be? Wasn't the ancient saint world supposed to be populated and ruled by the ancient race? How could it be that he had not bumped into a single one of them all along the way? Usually, when he did not wish to bump into them, they would appear one by one like a bunch of dogs. To think that now that he was trying to seek them out, it was as though they had vanished entirely. From what Lin Fan could garner, the buff given to him by the system accorded him with more experience points per kill, and perhaps some other benefits. However, if he used it on low-level beasts, there would practically be of no use at all. After all, the difference in cultivation states affected the experience points gained way too much. Any one of the ancient race tribesmen that were Earth celestial cultivation state and above were the target groups that Lin Fan was hunting for right now. Floating in the air, Lin Fan looked down at the earth below. He hollered out in rage, "Yours truly is a human. Who the hell can come and kill me?" This holler was like thunder that boomed out across the lands. However, no matter how hard Lin Fan tried to shout out, the surroundings remained silent and quiet all the same, without being affected at all. Lin Fan frowned, "I can't wait any longer. If this is the case, I'll have to level up in the middle of combat then." Lin Fan did not know the number of ancient race tribesmen that resided within the base. However, he wasn't afraid in the least bit. The only way he could vent out this hatred in his heart was by taking the cheap lives of these ancient race degenerates. PSHEW. In an instant, Lin Fan disappeared from where he was as he darted ahead once more. Right after Lin Fan's departure, a group of figures appeared in the skies. "What's that fella up to?" That devilishly seductive woman looked in the direction Lin Fan darted forth. Her brows creased, unable to comprehend the actions of this man at all. "Master, what's wrong with Uncle Lin? Zahn feels that if we continue to deceive Uncle Lin like this, Uncle Lin would definitely not like Zahn anymore in the future." That cute and dazzling Zahn tugged at the woman's exquisite silk linens. The original village chief of the village looked sharper than before in terms of aura, despite still looking elderly with white hair. Looking at the way Lin Fan was right now, he could not help but feel a little worried. While he felt that his mistress's actions might be a little off, he couldn't disobey her orders at all, as he was just an underling. The woman looked at Zahn and patted her head gently. "Zahn, are you blaming your master now?" "Zahn isn't." Zahn shook her head hurriedly. The woman was feeling bewildered as well. What in the world was he up to? There could never be growth with stagnancy. She had wanted to use this small little example to rectify Lin Fan's view of this world, so that he could understand how weak he was in the face of things. But why did this guy seem so hurried, as though he was in a rush to do something? The ancient saint world was divided into 8 different districts. Each of these districts were helmed by one of the 8 utmost beings of the ancient race. This district they were in right now was once helmed by the Ancient One. Back when the Ancient One had fallen, there was naturally no leader in this place anymore. However, it has been 10,000 years since then, and he had been replaced with a new utmost being in his position. Even though this new utmost being was comparatively weaker compared to the other 7, he was still a force to be reckoned with. Even if he were to appear in this district, he would have to tread with care. Otherwise, if any strife were to occur, the consequences would be unimaginable. "Mistress, that area ahead seems to be a small base of the ancient race." That elderly village chief spoke up. The woman was stunned. "Yang Kun, what are you implying?" The village chief, Yang Kun, looked back at the woman with uncertainty. "Nothing, mistress. It's all just a guess of my own." "It's right, don't bother with it. That's impossible. There shouldn't be anyone that silly in this world. Even though it's just a small base of the ancient race tribesmen within amount to millions of them. This is undoubtedly just courting death." The woman denied those thoughts immediately. Such a thing was definitely impossible. "Master, can we please follow and check it out? Zahn doesn't want Uncle Lin to be hurt." Zahn wrung the woman's slender hands and asked endearingly. "All right." The woman nodded her head. Lin Fan was rushing forth like a maniac. Finally, he caught sight of the small base. This small base was akin to a dynasty back in the Xuanwang world, with high walls in all 4 directions. Suddenly, Lin Fan could sense a blood stench being emanated out. This blood stench originated from the base. Those pitch-black walls of the base were filled with bloodstains, and there were bodies of different races hanging on them. It was as though they were announcing to the world that the ancient race were still the rulers of this world, and the other races were nothing but meat waiting to be slaughtered. A series of tragic yells and cries rang out from within the city walls, piercing the skies. Even if Lin Fan were quite a distance away right now, he could hear everything clearly. These were the voices of different races. All of those people were being tormented right now. Upon hearing these voices, the image of Zan surged within Lin Fan's heart once more. Even though he had not witnessed for himself the torture that Zan had undergone when she was killed by the ancient race tribesmen, he could imagine it in his mind. It must have been hell. Herg, spinning his body around, he burst down like a meteor that had broken through the stratosphere in the skies. Boom! Lin Fan landed from the skies right in front of the city walls. N-O-V-E-L-B-in.C-Ohm. Looking at this base of the ancient race, Lin Fan did not have a single strain of fear in his heart. That was because he was being supported by a source of energy inside him. Ancient race, all of you better come out to receive your deaths. Lin Fan's holler was like a typhoon ripping its way through the entire base. Standing there, he gripped his eternal axe ever tighter. One should bide time and wait for the opportunity to seek vengeance. But to Lin Fan, that was just an excuse made up by cowards and weaklings. Who dares to be insolent? Just then, a voice boomed out from within the base. Bam! The ground shook as the towering doors of the base slammed open suddenly. From within, a dense amount of pitch-black ancient race tribesmen gushed out in an orderly manner like locusts. These hideous and ugly-looking ancient race tribesmen line up with discipline beneath the city walls. With just a single glance over, there were at least tens of thousands of them right now. The combined aura of their fiendishness was like a dark beam of light that pierced through the heavens above. Standing there, Lin Fan could not help but gulp down his saliva. His hands were sweating right now. From within that army of ancient race tribesmen, an exceptionally towering figure walked out. This ancient race tribesman looked way more formidable than any of the others. His aura was bursting out, running rampant in a berserk manner. Catching sight of the figure before him, he burst out laughing maniacally. Ha ha ha, I am the centurion of the ancient race, Ji Dao. How dare you act so impertinently alone? You must be really, really tired of living. Looking at that lone human before him, Ji Dao could not stop his guffaws. Right now, everyone in the skies were absolutely dumbfounded. How could it turn into this? The woman stared at Lin Fan absolutely flabbergasted. To think that this fellow would really come and throw his life against the ancient race. Just what level of silliness should one have for them to do such a thing? Anyone in the right frame of mind would definitely not attempt something as crazy as this. Chapter 466, I'll chop all of you down. Chapter 466, I'll chop all of you down. Tired of living? Haha, ancient race. Yours truly shall put his words out straight up today. It's either you guys or yours truly who's going to leave this place alive today. Who's afraid of whom? Yours truly shall use your lives to compensate as a tribute for everyone in that small village. Lin Fan hollered out as his aura erupted out of his entire body. Even though the ancient race tribesmen had the advantage in numbers, most of them were just cannon fodder. The only issue now was that Lin Fan did not know what the highest cultivation state amongst them was. Even though he had declared a death bout with them, Lin Fan knew that he wouldn't die right here. After all, rebirth through blood should be able to help him fight them to the death. At the same time, he could always retreat within the heaven and earth smelt to hide. Even though Lin Fan had made up his mind to fight them to the death, he had planned his retreat path as well. After all, how could he just die right here? He swore that he wouldn't call himself a human if he didn't massacre the last of these ancient race tribesmen. Those figures who were floating in the voids were entirely stumped by Lin Fan's words. To think that it's because of us. One of the men who had acted as a villager looked down at that lone figure below in disbelief. He had not expected this human to head here to challenge the ancient race to a deathmatch all for the sake of vengeance. As for the village chief, Yang Kun, his heart skipped a beat as well. That elderly face of his could not help but crease up even more upon hearing Lin Fan's words. Since this human takes us so seriously, wouldn't you please save him, mistress? There are so many ancient race tribesmen here. He's bound to die, Yang Kun implored. He did not wish for this human to die in their hands. At the same time, his mistress was a human too. How could she just watch her fellow human race member die like this? The woman looked down. Her face was bewildered right now as well, as though she was contemplating something. You guys don't understand. Mistress, your powers are beyond the heavens. It's definitely not impossible for you to rescue this human from their hands. Yang Kun begged out once more. Master, please save Uncle Lin. Zan begs you. Looking at Lin Fan below, Zan face was anxious right now as well. No, the issue is not as simple as you guys may think. If I really do strike out, things would definitely be bad. And the outcome is not something that you guys can imagine. The girl replied with wariness. Master, Zahn tugged at her sleeves nervously. At the same time, her feet were twitching nervously with panic. Below, Lin Fan took in a deep breath. Trashes, cut the trash talk. Yours truly shall chop all of you down today. Bam! Suddenly, Lin Fan's figure disappeared from where he was standing. Firmament. Within the void, the eternal axe's flash burst out, bringing with it boundless power as it rippled through the battlefield. HMPH, insolent. The centurion of the ancient race tribesmen, Ji Dao, snorted coldly on seeing this man's bold move. Those massive pitch-black muscles expanded rapidly as the sword in his arm danced in the skies. As if it were slicing through the void, it struck out in the direction of the axe's flash. Bam! Earth's celestial full cultivation state. Lin Fan could make out this man's cultivation state. It was higher than his own state by 2 levels. Even though it might be tricky, taking him down was not something that was entirely impossible. Lin Fan glared at Ji Dao. Like a streak of lightning, he flashed by and headed behind to kill the cannon fodder within the army. All of you useless cannon fodder. Go to hell, Lin Fan hollered out. 3-headed and 6-armed faceless sky demon. Firmament sword. In that instant, the 3-headed and 6-armed demon flew out, as an uncountable number of sword wheels appeared in the skies, shooting out at the army. Ji Dao hollered in rage upon realizing that this human had dodged him and was heading out to slaughter his fellow tribesmen. ****, come at me if you've got guts. Haha, once yours truly is done with these ants, I shall take you down. All chop. Ding, congratulations on killing utmost celestial middle level being. Ding, congratulations on killing utmost celestial upper level being. Ding, congratulations on killing utmost celestial lower level being. At this point, Lin Fan was like a death god. Wherever he passed by, nothing was left alive. In his eyes, these ancient race tribesmen were nothing but ants. Even though the experience points were limited, they were still pretty useful thanks to the buff. Ah, Centurion, help us. This human is too strong. Centurion, these ancient race tribesmen soldiers had not expected Lin Fan to be this strong. They didn't have any room for resistance. ****, looking at the scene before him, Ji Dao flew into rage and darted towards Lin Fan. This guy's cultivation state was higher than Lin Fan. If Lin Fan were to face him head-on, he might not be a match for him yet. But, something like dodging was pretty easy for him nevertheless. Stealth, slicing down with a single blade, Ji Dao's force seemed to have sealed the entire area's void forcefully. But, to think that the human had vanished suddenly, that caught Ji Dao by surprise. But just as Ji Dao was searching for his presence, tragic cries rang out from another side. By some unknown means, the human had appeared at the other end of the battlefield, and was still slaying his ancient race tribesmen down mercilessly. S strong. Looking down at Lin Fan from the skies, Yang Kun could not help but gasp out. Yang Kun had thought that Lin Fan would definitely stand no chance against the overwhelming forces of these ancient race tribesmen. To think that this guy would find so much comfort in the battlefield. It was as though he was a fish that had just discovered water. With every passing second, ancient race tribesmen were going down. The woman's gaze at Lin Fan was fluttering as well. She realized that she had underestimated this fella here. However, she could not help but shift her gaze back within the base, revealing a look of worry. Even though things were fine now, if the ruler of this base were to head out, things might not continue to go on as smoothly. You damned human, how dare you kill so many of my ancient race tribesmen? I shall have you lay down your life here today. Looking at how many of his fellow tribesmen were being slain, a burning rage was boiling within Ji Dao. Go to hell. Suddenly, Lin Fan frowned. He had noticed the sudden surge in the Centurion's aura. Herg. With a cold roar, Ji Dao's pitch-black body expanded massively. It was as though something was going to burst out of his back and was struggling continuously within. Bam! Suddenly, with a maddened howl, a pair of slimy wings burst out of Ji Dao's back. Human, you deserve death. Ji Dao's voice was hoarse right now. Seeing this sight, all the ancient race tribesmen soldiers erupted in cheers. Hooray! Those are the boned wings of our Centurion. This human can't escape for sure now. Long live our Centurion, PSHEW. Suddenly, Lin Fan could feel a dangerous aura darting towards him. He gripped his eternal axe instinctively. Bam! N-O-V-E in .C Ohm. For some reason, Ji Yudao had suddenly appeared from the other end of the battlefield right in his face, and was already in the midst of slashing down with the sword in his hands. Lin Fan frowned as he leapt backward. To think that this guy would be this strong. He was not that far away from leveling up right now. He might have a chance if that happened. Suddenly, Lin Fan's aura turned blurry as well. Nirvana finger. The void rippled as the ancient race tribesmen who were before Lin Fan discovered to their horror that their bodies were tearing apart. Centurion, help, B****, how dare you continue massacring my tribesmen? Looking at how the human was seizing the opportunity to slay more of his kind, Ji Yudao leapt down with a massive cleave. Bam! Taking on the full blow, Lin Fan's mouth spewed out fresh blood. However, he let out a cold grin at the same time. He had done it. Chapter 467, What About Me? Chapter 467, What About Me? Ding! Congratulations on leveling up. Cultivation state. Earth Celestial upper level. Feeling the surge of power in his body from leveling up, Lin Fan was even more confident of his chances now. The strongest buff was the strongest indeed. Even the experience points gained from slaying these weak creatures were way different from before. But it was a pity that the buff could only sustain for a single day. If it could last for a bit longer, Lin Fan was sure that he could definitely reach the top of this world in just that period of time. Human, I'll see how long more you can hold on. Flapping out hard, the boned wings behind Ji Yudao's back seemed to be tearing through the void. With a bright flash of light from his longsword, he appeared right in Lin Fan's face once more. Break. The razor-sharp longsword was flashing with brilliance and boundless power, as it sliced out towards Lin Fan mercilessly. Bam! How could this be? Ji Yudao was stunned. To think that the human could stop his move. Lin Fan fended Ji Yudao's longsword away from him with his eternal axe, grinning coldly, "You can go to hell." All chop. Wielding the eternal axe, Lin Fan slammed down hard at Ji Yudao. Bam! Bam! One swing after another, Lin Fan cleaved down relentlessly. Ji Yudao was blocking the blows with his long sword. But to his surprise, the human seemed to have gotten stronger than before. B****, Ji Yudao howled, wanting to burst forth with all of his strength so that he could repel this human. However, his face changed as a red flash of light appeared. 9-5 Legendary Brick. Wielding the 9-5 Legendary Brick, Lin Fan slammed down at Ji Yudao's head. Ji Yudao had not expected this human to pull out an unknown weapon all of a sudden. Even though this weapon did not have an aura, Ji Yudao could tell that it was definitely far from ordinary. Bam! Ji Yudao used his hand to block away Lin Fan's 9-5 Legendary Brick from touching him. Human, you, True Origins crushing kick. Before Ji Yudao could finish his words, his face changed as the action in his arms came to a halt. That malicious-looking face turned blurry all of a sudden. That was a realization of pain. How could this? He stared at Lin Fan in absolute disbelief. To think that this human could be this despicable. Arg! In that instant, an unbearable pain surged up into his head. An earth-shattering cry rang out from Ji Yudao's mouth. His knees buckled under his weight, hands clutching his crotch. He glared at Lin Fan begrudgingly, "You." All chop. Lin Fan did not have the time to waste bantering with this guy. Therefore, he just swung his eternal axe straight down at Ji Yudao's neck. Ding! Congratulations on killing Earth's Celestial Full Cultivation Ancient Race Tribesman. Ding! Experience points plus 60,000. Ding! Congratulations on leveling up. Cultivation state. Earth Celestial Full Cultivation state. Haha! Lin Fan reared his head into the skies and burst out laughing. Indeed, he could level up with a single slice. Who else could dare to face up against him? Lin Fan lifted Ji Yudao's head and called out, "Who else wants to step forth?" Suddenly, Lin Fan's imposing figure became ever so frightening in the eyes of the ancient race tribesmen. Ah, the Centurion is dead. This human has killed our Centurion. Damn it, the ancient race tribesmen soldiers were in a state of confusion right now. They had not expected this outcome at all. To think that the Centurion, who was the strongest in their eyes, would be slain by this human with a single cleave of his axe. Each time any of the other races from the thousands of worlds out there caught sight of the ancient race, they would be petrified and scared witless. No one had ever dared to behave impertinently before them. But, this human had dared to come to their base along and kill their Centurion right before their eyes. Everything was way too surreal. Everyone from the skies stared at the scene below with their jaws agape as well. Even though this Centurion might not be someone that could compare with them, they also knew that Lin Fan had just only ascended into the ancient saint world recently. To think that he would already possess the strength to take down a centurion. They recalled back to their own experiences back when they had just ascended to this world. They had to live a miserable life, and trained up for many years before they could even match with a centurion. And the most shocking thing was that Lin Fan had dared to perform this feat right in front of an ancient race base. There would be few with guts like him in the entire ancient saint world right now. Mistress, Yang Kun exclaimed in disbelief. At the same time, he could feel his blood pumping. Even though he had aged considerably, these were the sort of things that he could only dream of achieving in his very own dream world. But he never managed to muster up the courage. While the ancient race massacred the other races brutally, these were facts they could only accept and not dare to fight against. But the sight of this scene right now had their adrenaline pumping madly. It was as though a large pent-up amount of hatred had been released from their hearts. I'm seeing it. The woman nodded her head. Her eyes sparkled as well, acknowledging the incredibility of this scene right now. However, it soon changed into a look of worry. It was because she knew that this issue was far from over. The true horror had yet to begin. Boom. Suddenly, thunder crackled in the skies. A frightening and repressing vile aura burst out intensely from within the base. Who is it? A nerve-wrecking holler came forth from within the base. Just who is it that dares to kill my centurion? I'll have you pay with your life. Boom. It was as though there was an ancient and dangerous creature that was hidden in slumber within the base all along, which had just woken up from the provocation of an outsider. That tremendous aura shot forth from the base. In fact, it was so strong that even the heavens were trembling against it. Lin Fan's face changed. He could tell that this aura was horrifying, truly terrifying. Compared to the centurion from before, the difference was practically that between an ant and an elephant. Lin Fan had thought that the other end would just send out yet another centurion. But by the looks of it, he seemed to have attracted the attention of the strongest being that resided within the base. This was going to be a tragedy real quick. Based on the normal novel routines, wouldn't there normally be a few small little generals before the main character grew stronger with time? Why the hell did the death of a single centurion trigger an existence like this? Lin Fan's heart skipped a beat as his fingers shivered slightly. If he continued waiting the way he did, he would definitely die right here. Lin Fan took in a deep breath, pushing down that rising sense of fear in his heart. He then hollered, venting out all the rage in his heart. Come out if you've got the guts. Yours truly isn't afraid of you. Lin Fan was not going to leave. He was going to avenge Zhan. Back in the Xuanwang world, what sort of opponents had he not met? What sort of adversities had he not managed to scrape through? How could he be afraid of something just like this? But, if he were to be frank about it, he did feel pretty nervous within his heart. However, none of those feelings were displayed on his face. It was as though he was making a statement. This is the sort of cocky character that yours truly stands for. None of the people up in the void had expected something like this to happen. The woman's face was especially wary right now. The force of that aura that emanated from that base was definitely out of her expectations. Zhan, come back. Suddenly, the woman saw her own disciple being revealed out of the void. She was caught by surprise as well. But it was all too late. Uncle Lin, hurry up and run. Zhan appeared in the void all of a sudden and shouted out towards the figure below. Lin Fan was stunned, as though he was hallucinating. He seemed to have caught sight of Zhan in the void above. Zhan, Uncle Lin, hurry up and run, it's dangerous. Zhan was gripping her little fists and screaming out at Lin Fan, as though she was using up all her strength. Zhan, don't worry. I'll be fine, you just watch me from above. I'll definitely seek vengeance for you. Looking at that cute features on Zhan's face, Lin Fan rubbed his nose. To think that such a cute little fox kid would die just like that. That was bloody heartbreaking. To think that he would be in such depression that he would hallucinate about Zhan. But then again, Zhan loved him so much. She would definitely be watching silently from above. Upon hearing these words, Zhan was stunned. No. Uncle Lin, I'm not dead. None of us are dead. Please hurry and run. Not good. Run. Suddenly, the woman's face changed. She could feel a divine consciousness piercing through the heavens and locking onto her. Flicking her hands hurriedly, she brought Zhan and the rest out of this place in an instant. Om. Ah, Master. Uncle Lin, don't die. I'll definitely come to look for you. Lin Fan stared blankly at the skies above. He had just seen some people. Even though Lin Fan's heart was overwhelmed with joy momentarily, he did not know what was going on. But one thing was for sure. Zhan wasn't dead. At the thought of this, Lin Fan chuckled to himself happily. But this smile didn't last long, as it was replaced by a flabbergasted look. He had realized a big issue. What the FCK was yours truly supposed to do with this situation here then? Chapter 468. This is all a misunderstanding. Chapter 468. This is all a misunderstanding. But honestly, Lin Fan was just completely stumped right now. Especially when he caught sight of that figure. That was an image that was etched deep into his heart. At the same time, he knew who that was. FC King Mother CKER of FCKS. Yours truly got played. That's right, Lin Fan was completely sober right now. He finally understood that he had been taken for a ride. Even though Zhan, that little brat, was one of those who had joined in to trick him, Lin Fan wouldn't get angry at her. After all, when he caught sight of that haughty figure beside her, he knew that face by heart. This sweet Lord Mother F***C King Empress. What did yours truly ever do to you? All yours truly did was to kill one of your bodies in the lower world, and completely whipped your other body to full nude exposure, that's all. Because of that, you're playing out yours truly now. Alright, fine, you've got me good and dandy this time around. But yours truly has you marked in his head. You better wipe that A**S of yours clean. If yours truly doesn't FCK you to tears, yours truly's name will be Fan Lin instead. Lin Fan cursed into the skies. At the same time, he was entirely exasperated by Zhan actions. That act of betrayal was beautiful and perfect. Even though he knew she shouldn't have had a choice, she should have still given him some hints. The Empress, who was trying to dodge that divine consciousness, heard Lin Fan's chains of insults, her face turning green with a helpless rage. What has it got to do with me? No one told you to be silly enough to come holler in front of an ancient race base. Okay, but no matter what, this grudge had been laid down. At the same time, the Empress was a haughty person herself. She snorted coldly in her heart, I'd like to see just how you can FCK me to tears. HMPH, talk about it if you can even get out of this calamity right now. ... Brash, I've really been too damned brash. Yours truly has no choice but to acknowledge this myself. This is really a big damned FCKSH*T trench I'm in at this moment. How am I supposed to run now? Lin Fan stood there absolutely dumbfounded. In his 21 years of life, this was the first time he was betrayed this badly. Even though the saying was, what goes around comes back around, retribution was never that sweet if it were on oneself. At the same time, didn't this retribution come way too quickly? This was damn messed up. No, he had got to get out of this safely today. At the same time, he would definitely have to watch his back from this point forth. This Empress had just fed him a shish tea load of sh*T from the dark. Who knew when the Namo Saint Emperor would pour some piss over him in the same manner one day? Thinking back at how badly he had humiliated the strain of consciousness of the Namo Saint Emperor back in the lower world, he was sure that this guy would definitely try his best to get back at Lin Fan himself. Bam! Suddenly, a figure bolted through the void and landed down massively. Human, were you the one who killed my centurion? The fella who had appeared before Lin Fan wasn't that towering. In fact, one could even say that he was stumpy. Like a kid, his face and skin was snow-white and tender. However, that cold and frosty gaze pierced through one's heart, striking fear directly within. An expensive pitch-black fur coat covered his body. That only caused his appearance to look even more imposing. Lin Fan looked at this kid before him as waves surged within his heart. He had not expected that formidable aura earlier on was emanated from this kid. And by the looks of it, this kid was not even of the ancient race. This is all a misunderstanding. Immediately, Lin Fan stretched out his hand and held up the body of that centurion. He then hurriedly took up the head he chopped off and tried to piece it back on his neck. Look, there, it's done. This is really a misunderstanding. Lin Fan pointed at that centurion whose body parts he had just put together, and laughed out heartily. Thud! Suddenly, the head that he placed on top of the centurion's body dropped onto the floor. Rolling slowly, that head rolled before the young boy's face. Seeing this, Lin Fan could not help but display some awkwardness. That young kid lowered his head, looking at that hideous-looking head that had rolled to his feet, as though he was attracted to it. Those unfazed purple pupils were silent and steady. However, there was a really sinister aura emitting from them. Ha ha! Suddenly, the young boy burst out laughing maniacally. That voice was clear and deranged. Lin Fan could not make out for the sake of his life what this boy was laughing about. Bigra! Lin Fan slapped his storage. Suddenly, a bunch of bigras flew out into the skies and exploded into the midst of the ancient race army. Pock, pock, a thick, dense mist covered the entire ancient race army. Seizing the opportunity, Lin Fan turned heels and ran as far as he could. Knowing that he was on the losing end right now, he definitely had to retreat. Sprinting far ahead, Lin Fan turned around to check on that horrifying young boy. But to Lin Fan's bewilderment, that young boy was still standing there laughing maniacally, without any intentions of giving chase. The mist that was formed by Bigra was blocked away from the young boy by a barrier he had created, unable to permeate within. But the surrounding ancient race army did not have it as easy as the boy. They had all sniffed up the mist produced by the Bigra entirely. Huff, huff, the breathing of these ancient race tribesmen turned heavy. That initially malevolent faces of theirs were even creepier right now, as they glared around at their surrounding tribesmen with bloodshot eyes. Looking at Lin Fan, who had run off far into the distance, the young boy turned around. Dragging his heavy fur coat on the ground, he took step after step slowly towards the city. As for the frenzied ancient race tribesmen around him, he couldn't be bothered in the least bit. Lin Fan sprinted all the way, not knowing how far he had gone. At the same time, he turned into a sharp corner and hid with stealth. For safety precautions, he had even hidden himself in a deep trench. Bloody hell, I just can't figure out what the hell is going on right now. As he waited patiently, he didn't know if he had made it out of the dangers awaiting him yet. He could tell that he was definitely no match for that weird-looking kid just now. If the other party had struck out, he might not have died for sure, but it would definitely be impossible for him to escape. A pity that the young boy was just laughing there insanely all the time. Lin Fan couldn't help but wonder what that laughter was for. There was a towering building within the ancient race base. The boy who was draped in the pitch-black fur coat stood at the top of it, looking down at the vast and boundless execution grounds below. He was expressionless, as though he was used to everything that was happening. Within that gigantic execution ground, thousands of races were imprisoned, subjected to torment day and night. The cruel roars of the ancient race tribesmen soldiers rang through the entire base. This entire place was filled with hopelessness and fear. There was a sort of power in this world, a power called despair. Night time. In that dark night, a pair of shimmering eyes pierced through the mud below and surveyed the surroundings. Everything seems quiet, seems like all should be fine now. Lin Fan had remained hidden for a really long time for the sake of his life. One had to be cowardly when the time called for it. Safety measures should also be taken seriously. And just as Lin Fan was about to head out, a voice rang from close by. Holy sh*t. Don't tell me they've finally sobered up and decided to chase after me now. But, when Lin Fan checked out these people, he found that they were not from the ancient race. They were from all sorts of other races. Seeing that, Lin Fan heaved a sigh of relief. As long as it wasn't the ancient race. Lin Fan did not have the intentions to greet these races at all. After all, he was already FCKED once in the morning. That had caused him enough fear for now. He should just wait silently for them to pass by. Lin Fan remained hiddenly helplessly under the blank night sky. The only thing that remained was a single hole that allowed him to breathe through. He wasn't bothered at all the conversation of these guys near him, only thinking about his path from here on forth. But suddenly, something shocking happened. A man with two horns on his head walked over to the spot Lin Fan was hiding at. Pulling aside his robes, he whipped out his ugly little donger. Holy sh*t. This guy is gonna take a piss. Lin Fan was stunned to the point of breaking down. FC King Mother of Lords. If he didn't come out, he was going to get a full piss facial. Chapter 469, Righteous Party. Chapter 469, Righteous Party. This was a person from the dragon world. He had grouped up together with a bunch of other people of different races but with the same goal. All of them wanted to resist the ancient race together. And, the reason for their appearance in this place was because they had caught wind of a certain piece of important news. Upon thinking of the event that was about to unfold, this man was feeling pretty nervous. Because of that anxiety, he decided to take a whiz first. They had looked around the area and determined that there shouldn't be any ancient beasts around. Hence, they looked for a good location to prepare themselves beforehand. Lin Fan stared at the man standing before him. If he didn't come out right now, he was going to get an entire face of wee. If a beautiful man that was the perfect combination of suaveness and talent such as himself were to be peed on the face by a man, this would be a big, big stain on the life of yours truly. Just as Lin Fan was busy contemplating about these things, the expression on that man's face tightened slightly. It was as though the floodgates were about to open, sending down the pouring water gushing downwards. Lin Fan did not want to make any contact with these people initially for fear of courting more hassle. But the situation right now was evidently pushing him into a single direction. The only other way was for him to remain there and receive a flood of pee on his face. And honestly, for Lin Fan to have to endure that entire rain of pee obediently was worse than someone taking his life. Looking at how the man from the dragon world before him was about to push his pee out successfully, Lin Fan jerked up from the ground with a massive thud. "Buddy, mercy with your donger please." With a loud holler, Lin Fan appeared right in the face of the man. This man from the dragon world, who was in a relaxed state and ready to relieve himself, suddenly jerked back in shock on seeing this person who had appeared right before him. In fact, his little donger shrunk down immensely in shock as well. Ah! A high-pitched shriek rang out from the mouth of this man from the dragon world. It was one of the most pleasurable moments when one entered a state of peeing. However, the appearance of this random person had that man from the dragon world in an absolute state of shock. In fact, he was so shaken that he was nearly frightened to death. Duan Ming, what happened? Upon hearing the frantic cries of Duan Ming, a group of people hurried over. They were worried that something might have happened. Who are you? The moment they caught sight of Lin Fan, all of them got worried. In the ancient saint world, the ancient race tribesmen were not the only people one had to look out for. They had to be even more watchful against members of the other races. After all, there were many who chose to backstab their own races in exchange for a position within the ancient race. Everyone, please do not get worked up and worry. I am by no means a bad guy. Looking at all these cautious faces, Lin Fan had to explain hurriedly. He didn't want to be chopped down just because of any misunderstandings. Even though yours truly wasn't afraid, there was no reason for one to court more trouble. What sort of a person are you? Why have you appeared here? Just then, a middle-aged man from the Wings race stood out and asked. Lin Fan looked around at this group. There were more than 20 of them. There were members of various races, and some of them were from races that he had never ever seen before. However, Lin Fan could tell that their auras were far from simple. It was evident that these guys had gone through the ritual of bloodshed. Just a single glance over and Lin Fan could tell that the lowest cultivation state amongst them was Earth's celestial middle level at least. My name is Lin Fan, and I'm from the human race. I was hidden in this place, trying to look for lone ancient race tribesmen. But to think that this brother would suddenly appear before my face. Hence, I decided to give him a greeting. But who knew that this fellow brother would begin to scream out, scaring me in the process as well. Naturally, Lin Fan would not tell them that he was only hiding in the trench because he was being hunted down by the ancient race. After all, that would cause him to lose face. Upon hearing the words of Lin Fan, this Wings race person checked him out for a while before finally letting down of his guard. He then waved down all the people who were following him. Everyone, relax. This is just a misunderstanding. The Wings race member told the rest of them. Those people from the group heaved a sigh of relief almost immediately. The closer they were to the ancient race base, the more nervous they became. Any sudden movements or changes in the environment had their nerves wrecked almost immediately. I am Sha Zehua, the leader of this small party. Sha Zehua stepped forth and introduced himself. Now that the misunderstanding had been resolved, Lin Fan heaved a sigh of relief as well and began conversing with this man from the Wings race before him. The bonfire crackled throughout. Lin Fan had been conversing with Sha Zehua regarding issues of the ancient saint world the entire time. On the other hand, Duan Meng was seated nearby, looking at Lin Fan with a sorrowful look all the while. He had truly been scared to death by Lin Fan earlier on. In fact, he could not even feel his little donger right now. It was as though his little donger had fainted from the shock earlier on. He couldn't even cry out in such a situation. By this point, Sha Zehua had just discovered that Lin Fan was a human who had only ascended recently, yet he had the guts to stand up against the ancient race. He patted Lin Fan on the shoulder with the utmost respect. Bro, that's some good guts you've got there. It's really admirable. Through this short conversation, Lin Fan had discovered that this Sha Zehua was relatively easy to talk to. At the same time, his personality was a little boorish. These were great traits for Lin Fan to befriend him. No, compared to Brother Sha, I'm nothing but an amateur. Lin Fan waved his hands and replied humbly. Lin Fan, don't be humble now. For anyone to be able to kill off a whole bunch of ancient race tribesmen single-handedly, that courage is extremely rare to come by. Sha Zehua continued. Even though the time of their acquaintance was short, they were already chummy like brothers. This speed of progression was pretty shocking indeed. Brother Lin, it's really dangerous for one to always fight solo. How about joining our righteous party here? If we join forces together, we'll definitely be able to fight for the freedom of more races out there. Sha Zehua invited. Lin Fan was stumped. He had not expected Sha Zehua to invite him to the party. And by the sounds of it alone, that party's name sounded really gaudy. Righteous Party. Why the hell did this name sound like that of a cannon fodder party? If this were a television series, this party would definitely not survive beyond 3 episodes. Brother Lin, we've received crucial news that the Marquis of Despair is severely injured, and is no longer as strong as before. Hence, our expedition forth is to get rid of the Marquis of Despair, so that we could release this area from their control. I, Sha Zehua, formally invite you to join our righteous party. Let us strive for the sake of obtaining freedom for the various races. Suddenly, Sha Zehua stood up and looked at Lin Fan sternly. Everyone sitting around turned their gazes towards Lin Fan as well. Even though they had not spoken any words at all, they had been listening in on the conversation of their leader. To them, this human was definitely deserving of respect. Therefore, they acknowledged his qualifications to join their great family in fighting against the ancient race. Lin Fan was completely flabbergasted right now, not knowing how he should reply. Lin Fan had a good understanding of the sort of person he was. Wherever he went, *T would hit the fan. If he were to join this party, then the chances of this party being annihilated would definitely have a humongous increase. This, Lin Fan shrugged his head wanting to reject. However, when he looked at the look of anticipation in Sha Zehua's eyes, he was absolutely helpless. Eventually, Lin Fan stood up and flicked his robes. All right, for the sake of freedom, I'll definitely have to lend my assistance. It's time for these ancient race tribesmen to know how strong we truly are. C. Sha Zehua was glaring at Lin Fan furtively as well, fearing that this respectable human before him might reject his proposal. However, the moment he heard his brother Lin agreeing to it, he burst out laughing in happiness. All right, in order to celebrate and welcome brother Lin's joining of our party, as the party leader, I shall take out some of my valuable delicacies and we shall have a feast. Waving his hands, a large amount of delicious food appeared on the ground. Power be to our leader. Long live our party leader. Upon catching sight of the food, the party members started cheering excitedly. Hey, Lin Fan laughed awkwardly within his heart. He didn't even know if this were a good or bad thing that was happening right now. Was this brother Sha really silly or just faking it? To think that he would pull Lin Fan into the party after barely knowing him. It was quite the miracle for this party to survive this long with such a trusting leader as Sha Zehua. Chapter 470, Fugitive List Ranking. Chapter 470, Fugitive List Ranking. Alright, everyone come and introduce yourselves to our new brother here. From here on forth, we are a family. Let's join forces and take down the ancient race, freeing this world in the process. For the sake of a brighter future. Grabbing onto a big piece of meat, Sha Zehua chomped down on it as he rallied the party. I am from the water world. I'm a scout for the righteous party. You can call me Zhu Yun. In front of them, a skinny person laughed while chomping down on a huge piece of meat as well. I am from the war world, and I'm part of the combat squad for the righteous party. You can call me He Chengen. Another man who had a gigantic hammer slung on his shoulder beside Zhu Yun laughed out heartily as well. Looking at the people who were introducing themselves one by one, Lin Fan nodded his head in acknowledgement. Seemed like there were really people from all the worlds gathered together to fight against the ancient race. I am from the Horn world. You can call me Mu Liang. Also, I'm someone on the fugitive list. This Mu Liang with a lone horn bragged out with a smirk. Look at you bragging again, lad. Ever since you seized the opportunity to kill a decanus back then, you've been bragging all the way till now. You're really a disgrace to us righteous party. Don't mind him, brother Lin. This guy just loves to brag. Even though Sha Zehua was griping about Mu Liang in his mouth, he was secretly heartened. After all, everyone in their party had a purpose of their own. Fugitive list. This was the second time Lin Fan had heard of this. Brother Sha, what's this fugitive list all about? Oh, that's right, I forgot that you've just ascended into the ancient saint world not too long ago, brother Lin. Therefore, you must not know about this. The fugitive list is formed after anyone kills someone from the ancient race. They will be sensed by the heavens will of the ancient saint world, and this information will be sent to the main base of the ancient race to be recorded down. Finally, it will be disseminated across the entire ancient saint world. The heavens will of the ancient saint world is despicable indeed. The purpose of this is to leave those who defy the ancient race with nowhere to hide. If anyone were to capture or kill anyone from the fugitive and submit them over to the ancient race, they would be rewarded by the ancient race. If the one who kills any one of these people on the fugitive list were of the ancient race descent themselves, they would receive an infusion of power from the heavens will itself. Shah Zehua lamented bitterly, but what could he do about this? This was just a one-sided war to begin with. I see. Lin Fan finally understood. Brother Lin, take a look at this. Shah Zehua took out a booklet from within his storage ring. This is the fugitive list. The names of everyone who is wanted are recorded in here. With a point of his fingers, a dense amount of content came out from within. These are the rankings. If you notice, everyone on the first page are the most wanted fugitives. But to all of us here, these people are just heroes in our hearts. Shah Zehua explained. Lin Fan took over the booklet and inspected it closely. He had no idea who the first 20 names on the first page were. However, following their names, there were descriptions of them and a record of the time of their ascension into the ancient saint world. I'll show you what happens when I key in my name to search for myself. Shah Zehua entered his name, and the contents of the fugitive list reassembled itself suddenly. Shah Zehua, Wings Race. Killed 2 Decanis. Killed 60 soldiers. Reward, Ancient Race Decanis. Ranking, 45,002,120 feet. Lin Fan looked at the description of the contents. Every race was introduced carefully. The number of ancient race tribesmen they had killed and the reward for their arrest was clear as well. In fact, there was even a ranking for it. This heavens will of the ancient saint world was definitely a cocky fella in Lin Fan's eyes. Hey, do you see that, Brother Lin? In fact, we're not the only ones resisting the ancient race in this ancient saint world. There are many others just like us who are fighting as well. It's just that there are just too many of these ancient race beings. In fact, those of us who have ascended up into this world are barely 1% of their entire race. Shah Zehua continued. Look at mine. Mu Liang stood forth and entered his name as well. Mu Liang, Horn Race. Killed a Decanis. Killed 30 soldiers. Reward, Ancient Race Tribesman. Ranking, 130,521,432 feet. Looking at his own ranking, Mu Liang raised his head gleefully as well. See? That's my ranking. Even though it's low for now, I've improved a lot since then. As long as I kill a few more ancient race tribesmen, I'll definitely pull up my rankings. You're really too proud right now, lad. I've told you so many times, don't get cocky. You must be humble. Looking at how Mu Liang was getting elated once more, Shah Zehua felt the need to put down his ego. No-vel-p in.c ohm. Alright, leader. Mu Liang raised his head and replied proudly. How did you get your hands on this fugitive list? Lin Fan asked him curiously. Oh, all of us got one when we ascended into the ancient saint world. It's right in our storage rings. Don't you know about that, Brother Lin? Shah Zehua asked. Huh, Lin Fan was stunned as he took a look at his storage ring. It had been a long time since he looked into this thing. Hence, he had not bothered about it at all. Opening it up, he found a booklet laying quietly within. Seeing that, Lin Fan sighed helplessly. He took out this palm-sized booklet. That's right, that's the one. Shah Zehua nodded. You've killed people from the ancient race, right? Mu Liang looked at Lin Fan curiously. His ranking was the lowest within this party. Therefore, now that there was a newcomer, he had to display his might for a little bit. Yes, Lin Fan replied, but he had clearly forgotten about the number he had killed. It was just a lot of them, and that was all. Leader, let's check him out. Mu Liang grinned. Do you think I can't tell what you're thinking right now? Shah Zehua stared at Mu Liang. He could tell this brat's actions with a single look. This brat was just trying to show off in front of the newcomer. Leader, are you going to search or not? If you aren't, I'm going to do it. Mu Liang had already decided firmly. If he didn't show off in front of this newcomer, where was the joy in life? Without waiting for the leader's approval, Mu Liang took out his own booklet and keyed in Lin Fan's name. Mu Liang sniggered in anticipation. This newcomer's ranking must definitely be far off from his. He was someone who had killed a Decanis and 30 soldiers to boot. That achievement alone wasn't something that someone who had just ascended could achieve. But when Mu Liang caught sight of the ranking on the charts, he was dumbfounded. In fact, he even forgot about anything he was going to say later on. What's wrong with you, lad? Looking at the petrified look on Mu Liang's face, he couldn't help but sigh. This kid really did not know how to give anyone else respect. How could he not give Brother Lin some pedestal to step down from? After all, a low ranking was something that was definitely shameful in the face of all these other races. But now that everyone was part of the family, how could he behave as such? Brat, you mustn't do this. Otherwise, I'm really going to get mad. Looking at how wide Mu Liang's mouth was opening, Sha Zehua thought that he was going to brag about his achievement in front of Lin Fan and let the latter know how strong he is. Sha Zehua felt the need to stamp down on such behavior that would disrupt their party's harmony. And no. Leader, take a look. Mu Liang finally snapped back and turned the fugitive list around to Sha Zehua. You, Sha Zehua sighed exasperatedly and walked over. All the other surrounding party members giggled as well. This kid's acting skills were getting better by the day. They could only hope that this new brother who had joined them did not mind this. After all, Mu Liang did not have any ill intentions. This was just his personality. What? Suddenly, Sha Zehua exclaimed in disbelief as he glared at Lin Fan. He had not expected a god to be so humble. Chapter 471, Lin Fan who was really calm. Chapter 471, Lin Fan who was really calm. As someone from the Wings race, Sha Zehua was a man of magnanimity, and had rarely looked down on people. But of course, if someone were to surrender to the ancient race, Sha Zehua would definitely despise them. In fact, he might even murder the other party personally. Even though Mu Liang loved to show off, he knew that this kid did not harbor any ill intentions in his heart as well. This was just the way he was. Sha Zehua had already prepared himself mentally. After all, it was already extremely fortunate that someone who had just ascended to even manage to keep their lives. And the reason why he had invited Lin Fan into this party upon their first meeting was so that he could give this newcomer some party support. This way, he would have greater hope in living on in this world. But when Sha Zehua caught sight of Lin Fan's name on the ranking list, he was completely dumbfounded. Lin Fan, human race. Killed a centurion, killed 6 decanis, killed 1,300 soldiers. Reward, ancient race centurion. Ranking, 35,120,620. This was a ranking that was even higher than Sha Zehua's very own. In fact, just his achievements alone were enough to blind their eyes. Brother Lin, aren't you hiding way too much about yourself? Sha Zehua jerked into reality and looked at Lin Fan in disbelief. Those other party members who were busy munching on their delicious food were getting bewildered by their party leader's look of disbelief. What's wrong, Brother Sha? The others gathered around curiously as well. They wanted to know just what it was that had caused their leader to be in such shock. In fact, even the chirpy and cheery Mu Liang seemed to have been frozen solid. But when everyone finally gathered and checked out the fugitive list ranking, the entire place fell silent. Plop, their delicious food fell onto the ground from their hands. Instantly, holy sh*t. That's too strong, isn't it? A centurion, 6 decanis, 1,300 soldiers. How did you do this? Hero, suddenly, everyone burst out in cheers. They could not believe their very eyes. Looking at the introduction on the ranking list, Lin Fan frowned. 1,300 soldiers. Had he really killed that many the other day? Lin Fan had not really thought about it. After all he did was rush into them and kill everything in sight. He couldn't even be bothered about the numbers anymore. Brother Lin, please receive my respects. From now on, you are the big brother in my heart. Mu Liang looked over at Lin Fan excitedly. He took a step forth, then half-kneeled and cusped his fists together. Those sparkling eyes of his were filled with the utmost reverence. Mu Liang had submitted instantly. The moment he saw the description written, he was completely at a loss for words. Hero, these achievements were simply way too dazzling. To think that he had been so proud of himself earlier on. This was really a tight slap to his face. Gradually, the other party members began to sober up as well. They then chuckled over to Mu Liang. Are you still proud of yourself now, Mu Liang? What are you guys talking about? Since when have I ever been a proud person? Big Brother Lin is like my lamp in the dark path forward. He is the motivation for my battles for here on forth. Mu Liang replied. Haha, looking at how Mu Liang was behaving right now, the crowd of people burst out into laughter. But they soon turned back their gazes of bewilderment at Lin Fan. To them, these achievements were definitely heavenly defying. Brother Lin, Sha Zehua looked at Lin Fan. For a moment, he did not know what to say anymore. If not for the fact that he could tell the sincerity within those eyes, he might have thought that Brother Lin was taking them for a ride. Lin Fan looked around at the rest of them as well. He had not expected a small achievement as such to give them such a huge shock. Now, that was surprising. In fact, what Lin Fan did not know was that even though killing the centurion was already a shock that was great enough for them, it was the fact that he had massacred through 1,300 soldiers that had them truly stunned. Brother Shah, this is nothing much. Actually, back when I had just ascended into this ancient saint world, I bumped into the ancient race. That guy's position seemed to be a decanus or something, so I just chopped him down. Thereafter, I felt that these ancient race guys were really too much, so I just headed forth alone into that base up ahead. Lin Fan started commenting calmly. However, these words were surging like tidal waves within the hearts of these party members. Wait, Brother Lin, did you just say that you headed up to that base ahead? Sha Zehua asked in shock. That's right, it was over there that I took down their centurion and a bunch of other soldiers. Lin Fan replied casually. However, that casual look was ever so imposing in the eyes of these people right now. Upon hearing the fact that Lin Fan could take down a centurion and thousands of soldiers in front of their base and make it out alive, everyone was totally amazed right now. Sha Zehua did not know what to say anymore. He had thought that he was doing a good deed by inviting a human who had just ascended and giving him a feeling of solace. But right now, he realized that all he did was to in fact give his own righteous party a potent backing. Duan Meng, whose little donger was shocked into hibernation by Lin Fan, looked over with a look of utmost admiration. To all of them, the strong were definitely worthy of respect. Looking at how these guys before him could not get out of their shock over his brilliant achievements, Lin Fan sighed casually. Seemed like yours truly was just bound to be so bedazzling wherever he went. It was especially so when he caught sight of the looks of respect on their faces. Brother Shah, that Marquis of Despair you've mentioned earlier on, does he look like a kid? Lin Fan asked. Ah, Brother Lin, you've met the Marquis of Despair. Sha Zehua's face was stumped once more. Yup, I have. If he hadn't come out, I could have killed more of the ancient race tribesmen. Lin Fan commented casually as though he was talking about something that wasn't worth a mention. Ah, suddenly, everyone's minds were blown off once more. Brother Shah, just what sort of a person is this Marquis of Despair? Why does he not look like one of the ancient race tribesmen? Lin Fan asked. That, I've got no idea as well. All we know is that the Marquis of Despair appeared a long time ago, and has settled down in this district. At the same time, many people who had ascended were captured over by him. Sha Zehua replied. Then your expedition this time around is to take down the Marquis of Despair. But I could tell that this guy is nothing to be underestimated. Lin Fan continued. The Marquis of Despair is really strong indeed. But I've heard the news that he's severely injured, and his powers have dropped significantly. That's why we wanted to seize the opportunity to take him down and release this entire district. Sha Zehua continued. Then do you know how many strong underlings does the Marquis of Despair have? Lin Fan asked. No idea, Sha Zehua shook his head. He hadn't thought about things like these before. Huh, Lin Fan was startled. This guy was going to head there without even checking things out properly. Wasn't that just courting death? As for this rumor of him being injured, that was definitely impossible. Even though that Marquis of Despair seemed childlike, the aura emanated from his body was extremely strong. It was definitely not something they could handle. Not to talk about the Marquis of Despair, in fact, even some of his stronger underlings might be able to take down these guys to begin with. At this moment, Lin Fan regretted. This, righteous party, might be a suicide squad instead. Brother Shah, I propose that we start planning things out first. Lin Fan suggested. Alright, we'll listen to you. Everyone, listen up. From now on forth, Brother Lin is the vice leader of our party. Together, we must take down the ancient race. Sha Zehua rallied. Down with the ancient race. Down with the ancient race. Everyone rallied excitedly. Highs. Lin Fan sighed. He had really FCKED up big time here. This Brother Shah was such a fickle-minded person. One moment, he was hell-bent on taking down the Marquis of Despair head-on. But he changed his mind almost immediately upon hearing Lin Fan's words. Wasn't that decision changed too quickly? Could he have some stand of his own? Chapter 472. No one shall steal any kills from me. Chapter 472. No one shall steal any kills from me. The Marquis of Despair. Through his conversation with Sha Zehua, Lin Fan had already garnered that this was one of the districts helmed by one of the 8 utmost beings of the ancient race. This was the district that was once helmed by the Ancient One. 10,000 years ago, the Ancient One had fallen. With that, there was a missing piece amidst the 8 utmost beings of the ancient race. But of course, the ancient race was never lacking in terms of powerful beings. It wasn't too long afterward that a new being of the ancient race took over that position. And of course, Lin Fan did not have to imagine to understand how strong these 8 utmost beings of the ancient race must be. Even though the Ancient One was taken down by the Supreme Being and the others, that was only because they had lured him down to the Xuanwang world. Utilizing the power of the heaven and earth, they suppressed his powers to around 1% of his original strength. But even then, that weakened Ancient One had managed to take down the Supreme Being and the others as well. Seemed like this was a really rough path to walk on if one really wanted to conquer over the entire ancient saint world. The 8 gigantic districts were boundless realms of their own. Most common folks wouldn't even be able to get out of a single district in their entire lifetime. Those people who ascended into the ancient saint world would spawn at a designated spot. As for the place where Lin Fan had spawned, it was determined by the Marquis of Despair. If not for the fact that those people from the other races had rescued them from the ancient race, anyone who ascended into this place would only have death awaiting them. Lin Fan had his own ideas about this as well. He too wanted to free this district. That was especially the case for the Ascension Point. If that point was always watched over by the ancient race, there was no way anyone could revolt against this tyranny. But Lin Fan understood that he was definitely no match for the Marquis of Despair with his current strength. The only way forward was to continue getting stronger. Lin Fan had wanted to barge through everything solo and have an easy life that way. But by the looks of things now, it did seem like certain things were better off with a party. Now that he had just entered the ancient saint world, he was really unfamiliar with many things. Therefore, he had to tread forth with ease and caution. Since Sha Zehua and the others had ascended here for quite a period of time now, they were really familiar with the surroundings. If he wanted to level up, he might truly have to depend on their help for now. Brother Lin, what do you propose we should do next? Sha Zehua asked. In my opinion, I think we should strengthen the party and increase its strength. Based on our current number of members, it will not do. Lin Fan replied. That makes sense. But how should we strengthen our party? There are not many other races who have members lying around all by themselves. And, there are many other parties like us all around the place as well. In fact, some of them are way stronger than us. Those guys may not decide to join us. Sha Zehua commented. Lin Fan rubbed his chin and started moving his brains. Suddenly, a spark flashed through his mind as he grinned. We could head over to the Ascension Point and rescue those who have just ascended. We'll have them join our party and raise their fighting strength. After that, we'll look for other parties to combine together with for a joint attack on the Marquis of Despair. That should increase our chances of winning. Oh, that's right, why hadn't I thought of that? Sha Zehua slapped his thighs excitedly. The ascension happens once per month. If we head over there to rescue those people who have just ascended and recruit them into our party, we can slowly raise their fighting strength. The more Sha Zehua thought about this, the more plausible this idea seemed. But alas, there was something Lin Fan did not tell them. The thing was, what use were all these people who had just ascended? Their power levels were greater celestial full cultivation at best. In fact, they couldn't even fight a single ancient race soldier. As for grooming them and raising their strength level, that wasn't something that could work either. That would waste too much time. Based on Lin Fan's personal thoughts, he wanted to raise his own power level in the shortest period of time. With his own absolute power, he would then ram his way through everything in his path. Using brute force to take down anything in his way was something that Lin Fan was best at. PSHEW. PSHEW. Suddenly, the leaves ruffled. Lin Fan, who had wanted to say something, suddenly frowned. We've got company. Okay. Sha Zehua was stunned for a moment. He did not doubt Lin Fan's words in the least bit as he looked around cautiously. Righteous party, we've been waiting a long time for you guys. Just then, a voice rang out from the woods. This voice had a chilling touch to it, as though it was really sinister. Who's there? Sha Zehua hollered. He was long used to attacks as such. But seeing someone like this who could hide and yet remain undetected, he was exceptionally wary of this situation. The crowd gathered together and surveyed their surroundings warily as well. You puny little young one. Show yourself. Mu Liang will show you who's stronger. Mu Liang gulped down his saliva. The lone horn on his head shone brightly as ripples emanated from it. It was as though he was trying to sense the presence of the other party. But to Mu Liang's shock, no matter how hard he tried, he could not tell the location of the other party. Evidently, a powerful being had arrived. Hee hee, Suddenly, a figure emerged from the void with a creepy laughter. This figure was draped in long robes, as his blue-colored long hair swayed in the wind. Features-wise, there was no difference from the human race. However, there was an unspeakable aura about him. Shu Wuxin from the void world. Looking at the figure that had emerged, Sha Zehua's face changed. Seems like you know about me. Shu Wuxin looked at the righteous party with a casual face, as though he did not take them into account at all. HMPH, you degenerate of the void world. To think that you've killed your own father just to please the ancient race. How dare you sell out your own race? A scum like you, everyone knows of your infamy. Sha Zehua hollered without holding back. This was a big event that had just happened recently. How could anyone not know about it? Shu Wuxin from the void world had sold out his own comrades, leading to the capture of many people from the void world by the ancient race. He himself was then promoted to a centurion of the ancient race. Haha. Upon hearing these words, Shu Wuxin burst out into laughter. That laughter was extremely chilling. It's survival of the fittest, where only those who adapt shall live. And all of you are really foolish to the point of stupidity. To think that you guys could be lured out with just a rumor, that's almost laughable to even imagine. Only an idiot party like you guys could believe in it. Ha ha ha. Shu Wuxin was still roaring with laughter. Huh, Sha Zehua and the entire party was stumped. Lord Marquis of Despair is so strong. How could he be injured? Ha 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 ha. Shu Wuxin looked at these guys from the righteous party with pitiful eyes. These guys were simply way too stupid. Lin Fan sighed helplessly. He had not expected karma to act so quickly. If he had not bumped into this righteous party, these guys might already be cannon fodder right now. But with him around, that was another story. Lord Shu, you're strong indeed. To think that you could lure out these ant-like creatures with just a single lie. Kill them all. We'll obtain the blessings of the heavens will. ... Just then, soldiers appeared one by one out from the darkness. In fact, one of them was a decanus. Sha Zehua looked at these ancient race soldiers. His expression could no longer remain calm. If it were just a single Shu Wuxin, he would still have the confidence that he could get his entire party out safely. But now that there were so many soldiers, this was really difficult to say. But for Lin Fan, life definitely presented him with lemons on a consistent basis. The time duration remaining for his buff was almost up. He was still secretly lamenting in his heart that he had not cherished this buff properly, and had lost this glorious moment of his life. But to think that these guys would present themselves on a platter. No one here shall steal any kills from yours truly. Just then, Lin Fan stood forth and patted Sha Zehua's shoulders. Brother Sha, don't worry. Just stand back and watch. Lin Fan replied calmly. Brother Lin, Sha Zehua replied with worry. Lin Fan turned around and looked at everyone from the righteous party. All of you listen up. No one is to snatch any one of them from me. All of them are mine. Sha Zehua, Mu Liang, ... Azure Celestial lower level, looks strong, but looks can be deceiving. Chapter 473, Lin Fan, who loved chopping off heads. Chapter 473, Lin Fan, who loved chopping off heads. Human race. Shu Wuxin glared at this loudmouth before him as a light flashed through his eyes. He then burst out laughing, which got louder and louder with time, haha. To think that it's a human. Could it be that you're that human who's been warranted recently? Seems like the heavens are really blessing me, Shu Wuxin. Not only do I get the chance to take down this stupid party, I get to take down this human too. Killing your own father for the sake of glory, you're indeed a heinous sinner. The heavens have protected you for you to bump into me indeed. I shall have you pay the price for your crimes. Lin Fan looked at Shu Wuxin. This man was already beyond hope. He had seen many wretched people, but this was one of the worst degenerates he had ever encountered. The upper world was the upper world indeed. Not only were the rules of the upper world grander than that of the Xuanwang world, even the B***stars and beasts that appeared were way worse than those back below. And of course, there was only one way of dealing with B***starred beasts, cleaving down cleanly with a single swing of his axe, smashing them mercilessly. Brother Lin, do not let your guard down. Sha Zehua was worried. Even though he knew that Brother Lin was strong, Shu Wuxin wasn't anyone ordinary. Coupled with all the other soldiers, they couldn't afford to underestimate them at all. Doesn't matter. You guys just enjoy the show. How could Lin Fan allow Sha Zehua and the others to butt in? There wasn't much time remaining for this buff. If he gave up these experience points before him right now, then there would truly be no hope left. You foolish human, do you really think that you can kill all of us just by yourself? That's a joke. I'll advise you to come at me together with them before it's too late for regrets. Shu Wuxin jeered so hard that tears were almost coming out of his eyes. There's a reason why the ancient race can continue ruling over all the thousands of races. And that's because there are too many dumb *CKS like you guys. Lin Fan did not reply, and just wielded the eternal axe in his arm. Even though the eternal axe was a damaged legendary weapon, it was still Lin Fan's most trusted weapon as of now. Even though I may be silly at times myself, you guys are nowhere qualified to have me in that state with just you pieces of *T. You should come at me together with all your masters here from the ancient race before it's too late. Lin Fan glared at Shu Wuxin without a single bit of fear. So what if you are an Azure Celestial? Yours truly shall mow you down as an Earth Celestial full cultivation being. Insolent, Shu Wuxin was triggered. What are you wasting your breath on him for? Just devour him outright. The ancient race soldiers were riled up as they dashed towards Lin Fan together. A towering ancient race soldier, who was at least 2 meters tall, roared out as he cleaved down at Lin Fan with his weapon. The tremendous amount of force caused the void to ripple out. The ancient race tribesmen were fearsome beyond anything else. Coupled with that hideous-looking face, they bore an overwhelming advantage in the battlefield. The moment Mu Liang caught sight of that ugly and angry face, his heart jerked for a moment. At the same time, he could not help but feel proud of himself for having the courage to even dare to resist them. The more he thought about it, the braver he found himself to be. Watch out! Duan Meng from the dragon race warned Lin Fan upon catching sight of the formidability of this ancient race tribesman. N-O-V-E in .C Ohm. Human, I'll devour you whole, that ancient race soldier cried out in rage. At the same time, the weapon in his hand rang with a broken sound as it slammed down towards Lin Fan. Lin Fan stood where he was without budging an inch. Raising his head, he smiled brightly. This smile was dazzling like flowers blossoming in spring. However, that was a strange sight to behold in this tense situation. True Origin's crushing kick. Suddenly, a flash of light appeared. That energy that could cause one's heart to shiver spread out through the entire place. Bam! An accurate strike that found its way in between his legs. That formidable-looking ancient race tribesman stopped momentarily. At the same time, that malevolent face of his was changing rapidly. A sorrowful pain surged up into his head. A tragic cry rang out from the mouth of this ancient race soldier. Thud! That soldier's pitch-black face changed expressions immediately. Pointing at this darned human, he could not believe that this person before him could be this despicable. All chop. Ding. Congratulations on killing Earth's celestial middle-level ancient race tribesman. Ding. Experience points plus 5,000. Lin Fan had already expected this amount of experience points from the beginning. This was all thanks to the buff. Without this buff, the experience points would barely amount to anything much. Even though he had only killed a soldier, this was still something for Lin Fan to brag about nevertheless. Ho, seems like the ancient race is smart indeed. To think that he even knows how to kneel down before me. But even then, yours truly has to chop his head down. I've already told you, Shu Wuxin, come at me together. Don't let your masters die one by one for nothing. Lin Fan tossed his robes and glared at Shu Wuxin imposingly. UB***SH**T. Looking at how this human dared to be so brazen towards him, Shu Wuxin could not tolerate it anymore. As for the other ancient race soldiers, they were howling out in rage as they saw their fellow race being slain. Shu Wuxin, how long more are you going to wait? The ancient race tribesmen glared at Shu Wuxin in rage, as though they were pinning all the blame on him right now. Even though Shu Wuxin was a centurion, that was nothing in the eyes of these ancient race tribesmen. He was nothing but a dog reared by the ancient race at the end of the day. Ayoyo, Shu Wuxin, oh, Shu Wuxin. Even though you're a centurion, you're being questioned by your underling. What a pitiable centurion you are. I'm really feeling sorry for you right now, you know. Lin Fan smirked. Shu Wuxin glared at Lin Fan. The fire that was burning in his heart was surging uncontrollably. At the same time, he could not deny Lin Fan's words. He knew that these soldiers were only respectful to him on the surface as a centurion. Within their hearts, they looked down on him with utmost contempt. Kill. Shu Wuxin began to make his move. At the same time, those other soldiers leapt out together with him at Lin Fan. Leader, shall we join in? He Chengen held on to his gigantic hammer with both hands. His blood was pumping, and he was raring to join the fight. No, none of you shall come. Just watch and leave everything to me. Lin Fan cried out while clashing against Shu Wuxin. The biggest concern on his mind right now was not this person before him, but Shah Zehua and the others butting in. Given their strength, none of these ancient race soldiers would be able to fend against them. If that were the case, these free experience points of yours truly would be wasted for nothing. Damned human, take my move, void eruption. With a maddened howl, a light screen burst forth from Shu Wuxin. Ha, how dare you even use your ultimate move? Catch yours truly's axe. Lin Fan could sense the move that Shu Wuxin had sent over as he cleaved down with his eternal axe in return. Bam! As these two tremendous forces opposed one another, a gigantic explosion burst out. That illusory light screen began to break apart. Eventually, it turned into glittering crystal dust and fluttered into the skies. Shu Wuxin, yours truly shall take care of these trashes from the ancient race before coming back to you. Lin Fan changed his course of direction as he turned around to the other ancient race soldiers. Arg, you low-life person, what's this move, how is it so painful? Human, I'll devour you. ... Tragic cries rang out through the skies. Like a wild horse rampaging around, these soldiers were stomped down onto the ground by Lin Fan one by one. At the same time, they were enduring tremendous torment from that unearthly move of Lin Fan, feeling the boundless pain surging up into their heads before having their heads chopped off in one fell swoop. Lin Fan did not know when this habit started, but the moment he took up his eternal axe, he loved chopping off the heads of these ancient race tribesmen. Each time a head was chopped off, he would feel this incredible sense of satisfaction surging through his blood up into his head. The whole scene was gory and bloody right now. Shah Zehua and the others were watching with their adrenaline pumping. Chapter 474, Don't try to resist. Just scream it all out. Chapter 474, Don't try to resist. Just scream it all out. Leader, I'm afraid. Looking at the scene before him, Mu Liang could not help but break out in cold sweat. I'm afraid too. Duan Meng, whose little donger had been scared off into hibernation by Lin Fan, added on wistfully as well. What's there to be afraid of? Shah Zehua gulped down his saliva, putting on a tough front. I'm afraid Big Brother Lin may chop our heads off one day as well if he's too engrossed in daydreaming. Mu Liang continued. Lin Fan's head chopping operation was simply way too gory. Yet another head was sent flying upwards. After spiraling in the skies, it then rolled around the ground like a ball. Blood sprayed out all over the place. It was a sight that one could hardly view straight. Shu Wuxin was startled by this move of Lin Fan. The way he lifted up his axe without the slightest bit of hesitation. Every single cleave hit its mark straight, without any room for error. ****, looking at how the human was chopping down the soldiers like vegetables, Shu Wuxin hollered and unleashed yet another move. Twisting Void. From within the void, a single arm stretched out. This arm seemed to be manipulating that impenetrable void. Due to the arm, the void cracked out bit by bit, as though something was spiraling within them. Human, you ought to die. Shu Wuxin glared at Lin Fan icily. Lin Fan's face changed. He could feel the void around him distorting rapidly. It was as though there was some sort of magnetic force bent on sucking him into the void. In the end, his outcome would be like the void itself, distorted into nothingness. How dare you act so insolently with these little tricks? Watch how yours truly shall whack you into submission. Lin Fan hollered, pointing out a single finger. The void began to rip apart as well. Firmament. An axe flashed through the heaven and earth. Demon City. A demon city rocketed in the skies above and began to enlarge gradually. Suppress. With that outcry, the figure of the big ancient demon appeared above the demon city immediately. Glaring at Shu Wuxin with his chilling gaze, the big ancient demon's arm broke through the heaven and earth and grabbed at Shu Wuxin. Under the grasp of the big ancient demon, that distorting void disintegrated immediately. How could this be? Shu Wuxin was in a state of shock right now. To think that this human would possess such a treasure. Human, you have riled me completely. Shu Wuxin hollered in rage. Reaching into the void, he retrieved a pitch-black crescent moon-shaped weapon and wielded it in his hands. This is an utmost treasure of the void world. You ought to feel proud of yourself for being able to perish in my hands today. Shu Wuxin glared at Lin Fan coldly. Evidently, he was being pressed hard by Lin Fan. Utmost treasure and whatnot, who cares? Catch the axe of yours truly. I'll chop. Suddenly, Lin Fan's figure appeared right before Shu Wuxin, as an axe slammed down from the heavens with tremendous force. The clanging sounds of metals clashing resonated through the surroundings. Firmament. Just as Shu Wuxin retrieved his utmost treasure, he found the human striking down right in his face. It was as though this devastating move was free of charge, being doled out left and right. I'll cleave, I'll chop. The eternal axe was like a flurry of afterimages right now as it cleaved down mercilessly at Shu Wuxin. And at this moment, all Shu Wuxin could do was bear Lin Fan's strikes. To think he couldn't even get the chance to retaliate against Lin Fan even after retrieving his utmost treasure. Human, don't you dare go overboard. Shu Wuxin howled out madly. He had not expected this human to be so strong that he could only defend and do nothing else. Overboard your A*S. What can you do to me? Take this ultimate move of yours truly. 9-5 legendary brick. Lin Fan's imposing disposition was at its peak right now. With a single huff, he slammed down at Shu Wuxin's head as the 9-5 legendary brick appeared in his hands suddenly. Looking at this weird-looking thing, Shu Wuxin's face changed immediately. Towards anything unknown, one would definitely grow a heart of caution. Furthermore, looking at how powerful the aura of this human was right now, Shu Wuxin definitely knew that this was far from a simple object. Therefore, he did not dare to let his guard down at all. Human, you dare to call that your ultimate move? Shu Wuxin blocked out this red-looking object away from him. However, at the moment of resisting it, he realized that it had zero power to it. He then laughed out maniacally. HMPH, did I say that was my ultimate move? True Origin's crushing kick. The moment Shu Wuxin's face frowned, a flash of light appeared. Huh, Lin Fan's brows creased. He had not expected Shu Wuxin to block that move too. Haha, give it up, human. I've been observing you from the sidelines. I won't fall for this trick of yours. Shu Wuxin's legs were crossed right now, gripping Lin Fan's leg tightly within them. Ultimate move, haha, that's all there is to it. Human, your death comes today. Shu Wuxin was laughing insanely right now. All these so-called ultimate moves were predicted and fended off by him. He wanted to see just what other moves this guy could deploy. For you to be able to clash with me for this long without even attaining an Azure Celestial cultivation state is an admirable feat to begin with. You can be proud of yourself now. Shu Wuxin remarked. Proud? For you to be able to defend against this leg of yours truly, you should feel proud. But it's a pity that you're looking down on yours truly. Lin Fan laughed coldly. But of course, there was nothing good to be gained from this single laugh for Shu Wuxin. Black Tiger Steel's heart. Suddenly, Lin Fan loosened his grip, dropping both the Eternal Axe and his 9-5 legendary brick. Coiling both arms in a circular motion, he twisted his wrist back inwards to his chest area. Like twin dragons bursting out of their caves, he sent two punch-like claws towards the other party. Bam! Not good. Shu Wuxin's face changed. However, it was all too late. His chest area was already struck by this human's fists. Pinch, pinch. A massive surge of energy pushed Shu Wuxin away instantly. However, Shu Wuxin burst out into laughter almost immediately after. Haha, human, you've successfully amused me to laughter with your clown antics. So that's all there is to your strongest move. Shu Wuxin used his fingers to feel up his chest. There wasn't any bit of damage, nor was there any bit of pain. Huff. Lin Fan heaved out a sigh of relief. He then completely ignored Shu Wuxin as he bent down to take back his Eternal Axe and 9-5 legendary brick. This was a decent battle indeed. Pretty entertaining, Lin Fan mumbled to himself. He then turned around casually and looked at the righteous party. Alright, guys, it's all settled now, Lin Fan commented. Suddenly, everyone from the righteous party was stumped. Settled, but Shu Wuxin was still standing there. Big brother Lin, have you been knocked silly? Mu Liang's face was stumped. Haha, human, how dare you continue to act so impertinently when death awaits you? Looking at this human before him, Shu Wuxin laughed with disdain. Lin Fan turned around at Shu Wuxin. Do you feel a numbing sensation? Nope. Then do you feel a little bit of pain? No. Shu Wuxin wanted to declare to this human that his attack had no impact on him at all. However, his face suddenly changed. Plop, plop, plop. Suddenly, Shu Wuxin began to sweat uncontrollably. Those massive beads of sweat fell onto the ground drip by drip. It grew faster by the second and denser by the minute. The color began to drain from his face as well. Arg! A tragic cry rang out from Shu Wuxin's mouth. How could this be? Shu Wuxin could feel a sudden surge of pain appearing within his chest right now. This pain gushed like a waterfall. One could not even resist it before it surged straight into his heart. This was a form of clashing between two horrendous powers. Lin Fan shook his head towards Shu Wuxin. Yours truly has 4 great sinister moves. And you, my friend, have merely received one of them. But it's alright, don't try to bear with it. The more you resist, the more painful it'll feel. Just let loose and scream it all out. No one here will laugh at you for doing so. Chapter 475, Attaining Azure Celestial Cultivation State. Chapter 475. Attaining Azure Celestial Cultivation State. The righteous party was entirely dumbfounded right now. They had not expected things to turn out as such. What was that move just now? How did the landing of 2 punches on one's chest cause such a devastating impact? What are you doing? Duan Meng asked Mu Liang. Does it hurt? Mu Liang's fists were on Duan Meng's nipples right now as he looked up and asked in anticipation. What do you think? Shu Wuxin was grasping at his chest and howling up to the heavens. He could not believe that he would lose, but that pain was irresistibly horrible. Too painful, too painful. It was so painful that he was almost breaking down right now. Lin Fan came before Shu Wuxin. To him, this was just a huge chunk of experience points. Azure Celestial lower level, just how much experience points was this worth? Especially now that he still had some time left on this strongest buff, just how much could he actually gain from this? This was Lin Fan's most anticipated event right now. As long as there were experience points, there was nothing in this world he couldn't achieve. No matter how strong the opponent might be, all of them could just hold on to their regrets and perish before him. I am Shu Wuxin from the Void World. You can't. Shu Wuxin was finding it difficult to speak right now. The pain was gnawing at his heart consistently. In fact, even just the mere act of breathing brought pain along with it. With the eternal axe slung on his shoulders, Lin Fan looked at this Shu Wuxin, who was fully consumed by torment. He sniggered and used his hands to try to figure something out. Should I start chopping you down from the left or the right side later? This is a really problematic issue to deal with. Shu Wuxin wanted to resist. He wanted to bring Lin Fan down with him even if he had to die. However, these were still nothing but mere thoughts at the end of the day. After all, the pain right now was so overwhelming that he couldn't even move a single finger, let alone do anything more. Big brother Lin, kill him. Scum like him should die. Mu Liang called out. That's right, lowlifes like him deserve nothing but death. All the other party members agreed. There was nothing pitiable about someone like this. Ha ha ha, all of you guys want me dead. But to me, you're all nothing but ants. So what if it's the void world? So what if it's the thousands of worlds out there? All of this is just a dream and nothing else. Ever since I, Shu Wuxin, decided to tread on this path, I never regretted my decision. Even if you kill me, your lives won't get any better. The might of the ancient race isn't something that you guys can imagine. How many people have tried overturning the ancient race over the tens of thousands of years? But what was the eventual outcome? Since you know that resistance is futile, you might as well submit. All you guys are doing is pushing everyone into an empty and endless abyss of doom. Shu Wuxin was laughing at this moment with a strange glint in his eyes. To think that he could manage to spout out all these words while enduring the pain. Lin Fan was thoroughly impressed by that. But he did not know what this guy's intents were. Since he wasn't afraid of death, why would he side with the ancient race then? Shing, the axe shimmered under the glow of the moonlight. As the sharp blade of the eternal axe tore the void, ripples began to appear. Whether or not this guy was afraid of death, he had to die today. There was a huge chunk of experience points right here. Lin Fan must definitely not miss it. Looking at the blade of the axe, Shu Wuxin's heart skipped a beat. Thud. Suddenly, Lin Fan's face changed. Spare me, sir. Suddenly, that Shu Wuxin who was seemingly fearless about death dropped to his knees and began begging while clutching at his chest. Lin Fan was stunned. He retracted every single thought he had in his heart. That was just all a bunch of hogwash. Everything that Shu Wuxin had said earlier was representative of his boldness towards his incoming death. But, wasn't this too quick of a change? Spare me, please. I know of many secrets within the ancient race. As long as you spare me, I'll tell them all to you. I can't die, please. I really can't die here. Right now, Lin Fan was extremely pleased. This was the Shu Wuxin he knew earlier on. This was the Shu Wuxin who would backstab his own father and the entire race for the sake of his own survival. This was the sort of degenerate he was. And of course, Lin Fan would never ever be merciful to degenerates. Okay. Suddenly, Lin Fan realized that the time remaining on his strongest buff was about to vanish. He focused his gaze. All slay. Thud. Ding. Strongest buff has expired. Ding. Congratulations on killing Azure Celestial lower level being Shu Wuxin. Ding. Experience points plus 50,000. Ding. Congratulations on leveling up. Ding. Would you like to entrust your consciousness to the void to attain Azure Celestial state? Ding. Entrust consciousness to the void. Who the FCK cares? Slowly do it manually. FCK that. Forcefully level up. Ding. Azure Celestial lower level cultivation state. Lin Fan listened to the notifications. He was long used to these self-replying speeches of the system by now. But honestly, Lin Fan did feel a consciousness latching onto his body from the void. But this was severed forcefully by the system. In the ancient saint world, if anyone wanted to attain an Azure Celestial cultivation state, they would have to entrust their consciousness to the void. From there, they would reserve a memorial tablet before they could attain their Azure Celestial cultivation states. But with the help of the system, Lin Fan could just sever that forcefully and bypass the entire process to be an Azure Celestial without entrusting anything to the void. Boom! Suddenly, a massive aura erupted out from Lin Fan. Sha Zehua's face changed. He was knocked tens of feet by the vigorous aura. This aura, Sha Zehua had not expected his brother Lin to break through his cultivation state at this moment. Ayo. As for Mu Liang and the others who were of even weaker cultivation states, they were sent flying all over the place by this powerful gust of aura. Some of them were even rolling all over the ground. Big brother Lin, gentler please. Lin Fan closed his eyes. Right now, he could sense his consciousness being able to transmit through the boundless void with absolute freedom. Within the boundless void, he could sense the various other memorial tablets that laid floating in the skies, emitting mysterious auras of their own. At the same time, a limitless and humongous amount of energy surged through his body. This was the power of an Azure Celestial. Lin Fan waved out his finger. The void tore apart as the energy flow from within rippled out. Lin Fan's lips curled into a grin. He could finally tear through the void of this ancient saint world now. This was a huge leap of improvement for Lin Fan. Opening his eyes, a sharp gleam burst out before gradually culminating back within him. Demon City, absorb. Lin Fan did not know when the Demon City would finally grow further. However, this Demon City was a legendary weapon. Therefore, the amount of demonic chi that it required is definitely massive. But Lin Fan wasn't worried about this. After all, there were many ancient beasts and ancient race tribesmen around the entire place. With this amount of resources, it was only a matter of time before the Demon City broke through to turn into a true legendary weapon. However, the only regret Lin Fan had right now was that he hadn't fully utilized his strongest buff carefully. But of course, one must not be too greedy. He had already broken through a few cultivation states with the buff alone. He should be satisfied with this. Given his rate of leveling up, one could already profess him to be rocketing into the moons. After all, it took Sha Zehua and the others an extremely long time before they could even get to where they were right now. For him to overtake them in just a matter of days, what more could he ask for? Big brother Lin, you're simply way too awesome. Mu Liang's eyes were like little stars sparkling in the skies right now, filled with reverence. Brother Lin, to think that your innate potential is this strong. Leveling up after just that battle alone. That's some frightening potential you've got there. Sha Zehua exclaimed in awe. Haha, humble, please. Humble. Lin Fan waved his hands casually. These are not worth a mention. Graceful. See that, guys? That's called grace. Look at the sort of grace that my big brother Lin carries with him. Look at the amount of humility he's got. Mu Liang stood beside Lin Fan and started exclaiming. Bootlicker. Duan Meng tossed Mu Liang a glance. HMPH. I don't mix around with people who have low rankings. Mu Liang snorted. Looking at the both of them, Lin Fan broke into a smile helplessly. Brother Lin, now that these ancient race tribesmen have died here, they must have already sensed it from their end. In light of our safety, let's leave this place immediately. Sha Zehua commented. All right, Lin Fan nodded his head. He wondered how much his rankings had risen now that he had killed Shu Wuxin as well. Chapter 476, Which head should I knock? Chapter 476, Which head should I knock? Within a towering building that stood tall within the base of the ancient race was a patch of darkness within. A few green flames floated around gently with a ghastly glow, allowing that bit of light to permeate through the dark building. However, compared to the surrounding darkness, it was still ever so minuscule. Lying on a circular crystal bed, a pair of blue eyes were ever so dazzling in this darkness. A luxurious pitch-black fur coat was draped on the Marquis of Despair's body. At this moment, the Marquis of Despair was extremely silent. Those eyes were still as water, without any presence within them. Looking at those green flames, the Marquis of Despair lifted his hand gently, as though he was chasing after them. However, those layers of darkness were preventing him from going forth, as everything descended gently. Silence. Repressing silence. There was not a single peep of sound within. Zigwang. Suddenly, an authoritative voice boomed out from the darkness. A strain of fear appeared on that cute little face of the Marquis of Despair momentarily. However, it disappeared without a trace in the next instance. King, the Marquis of Despair knelt down on his spot. With the pitch-black coat draped over his body, his figure appeared even more minuscule. Within that darkness, a pair of purple demonic eyes appeared. Under the gaze of these sinister eyes, no one would dare to face it directly. No matter who it was, they would have to lower their heads against it. Those purple and demonic eyes started to shine with a glimmer. Arg! The Marquis of Despair's body shivered as a tragic cry burst out of his mouth. Streams of black chi began to emanate out from the Marquis of Despair's body and flowed towards those eyes. The Marquis of Despair laid prostrating on the ground with his head lowered. This was a pain he would have to endure once per month. After some time, those eyes gradually disappeared back within the void. The Marquis of Despair collapsed onto the ground, huffing heavily. He had undergone that torment for quite some time now. Little Guang, a voice rang over from a corner in the darkness. This voice was different, it carried with it a tone of concern. Don't come over, the Marquis of Despair hollered icily. He then struggled to stand up. That tender little face of his was filled with a firm resolution. Long Zan, I do not need your crocodile tears. I am the Marquis of Despair Zigwang. You can take back that sympathetic gaze of yours. Remember, you are nothing but a carrier. You have no rights to be involved in my affairs. That stumpy little the Marquis of Despair gripped his tiny fists tightly. Turning around, he walked back into his darkness, dragging his robes with him. Little Guang, a sigh came out through the darkness. Lin Fan and Sha Zehua left those treacherous grounds with the others, rampaging along the way. Now that Shu Wuxin and the other soldiers had died there, the ancient race base must be really riled up by now. For safety precautions, they had better find a place to hide away for the time being. Lin Fan now had the ability to protect himself. Even though an Azure Celestial wasn't the strongest there was to be, it was enough for him to ensure his own life. As for those stronger beings within the ancient race, Lin Fan would not be foolish enough to pick a fight with them for no reason. If they were so easily taken down, the ancient race empire would have long been overturned. How could it be still standing here, waiting for him till this moment? And indeed, after he had taken down Shu Wuxin and the other soldiers, his name did receive quite the booster in the rankings list. But Lin Fan was far from satisfied with these rankings. Just one look at it and Lin Fan was numbered amongst tens of millions right now. To him, there was still a long way to go from here. It wouldn't satisfy him till he was number one on the ranking boards. Even though the higher up a fugitive's name was on the ranking boards, the more danger he would be in, what could one do? One couldn't possibly shy away just because of that danger. One fine day, Lin Fan must have his name spread out across the entire ancient saint world. All of the ancient race beings must know to fear him while all of the thousands of other races would come to revere his name. Whoa, Big Brother Lin, your ranking seems to have jumped up once more. Mu Liang was really engrossed within the ranking boards. Keying in Lin Fan's name, he was stunned immediately. At the same time, he was quite envious. He wondered when he could become as strong as Big Brother Lin. Humble please, Lin Fan replied calmly, but he was unable to hide the look of glee on his face. For someone as powerful as yours truly, could this measly ranking serve to satiate him? Brother Lin, what should our next step be? Sha Zehua asked. He had witnessed Lin Fan's strength for himself during that battle. At the same time, he was now really hopeful about the future of the righteous party. Lin Fan sighed with exasperation in his heart. He wanted to say, Brew, you're the leader, you know. But at the same time, he knew that Sha Zehua was just going to be that sort of a person. Hence, he did not say anything of the sorts. It's getting late, let's rest for a while first. After all, we still have quite some duration before the ascension date. We'll use the remaining time to try hiding under the radar while we train up. Lin Fan commented. Not bad, this is a well-thought idea. This time around, we must definitely rescue all those who have ascended. Sha Zehua replied with respect. Lin Fan sighed once more. He could not help but admire this simple intellect level of Sha Zehua. As night came by, everyone entered their own slumber. Lin Fan looked up at the vast skies and entered the darkness of the woods. He couldn't relax, even at this juncture. He had to seize every opportunity to train up properly and raise his power level to the peak. That was the only time when he would finally be qualified to relax and take a break. Otherwise, with his current strength, things would be difficult. Not only could he not continue with his bullshit all the time, his show might go the wrong way at any moment as well. Thud. Once more, a beast was chopped into two by Lin Fan. Looking at the experience points, Lin Fan could not help but frown. This was simply way too little. It was so little that it was scary. How nice would it be if the strongest buff could last for just that much longer? But, it was a pity that that was impossible. Lin Fan flicked his robes, taking in all of the demonic chi around him. No matter how weak the chi was, an accumulation of all the weak chi would have its own use as well. Beasts here were especially active when night came. This area wasn't comparable to the boundary zones. In fact, there could be those high-leveled beasts that Lin Fan was direly anticipating. Roar. Just as Lin Fan was about to tread deeper, he was attracted by a roar and hastened his footsteps. This roar was extraordinary, and there was a repressing feeling about it. Ancient beast. Three-headed king. Azure celestial middle level. Io. Holy sh*t. To think that it's really a huge boss. Looking at this beast, Lin Fan's heart leapt with joy. To think that he could bump into a beast that had a cultivation state even higher than his own right now. This was naturally something that was exciting. This beast was deep in its slumber at the moment. That roar earlier on was just its breathing. Every single breath was like thunder on its own. This was really quite a sight to behold. Lin Fan rubbed his chin, wondering what he should do. Should he use his eternal axe and rush up to kill it, or should he try to sneak and attack in? This was a question worth considering. Lin Fan took out his 9-5 legendary brick and entered stealth mode, making his way around the beast sneakily. After all, it was late in the night now, and the beast was enjoying its sleep. How rude of Lin Fan would it be if he accidentally disturbed this beast's peaceful slumber? Tiptoeing, he trod with extreme care, as though he was about to do something bad. Huff. 3 gigantic heads laid on the ground. Each time they breathed, they would huff out steamy puffs of hot air. The stench was absolutely unbearable. Bloody hell, this stinks like sh*t. But for the sake of the experience points, yours truly shall bear with it. Lin Fan did not know if he would be discovered this time around. But, just as Lin Fan approached closer to the three-headed king, he was suddenly stumped. Wait a minute, there were 3 heads here. Which one should he knock? This was the first time that Lin Fan did not know which head he should knock. Chapter 477. Nobility of the Ancient Beasts. Chapter 477. Nobility of the Ancient Beasts. Alright, you then. Lin Fan looked at and decided upon the middle head, which looked the most malevolent. With that, he garnered that this must be the strongest head, so he might as well smack this. If a single head could cause all 3 heads to be knocked out, then that would be one hell of a bonus. But even if it woke up in shock, Lin Fan wasn't that afraid. After all, he would have already taken one head down. All slam, fast, accurate, brutal. With the 9-5 legendary brick in Lin Fan's hands, it was absolutely incredible. The void relented and gave way immediately, without any hints of his presence. Piok. Done. No vel b in .c ohm. Lin Fan's heart leapt with joy. However, just then, the 3-headed king who was deep in slumber suddenly jerked its eyes wide open. Those heavy eyelids opened up instantly, revealing golden pupils that looked down at the rest of the world in contempt, as a massive flash burst out. Roar. Looking at how someone had dared to disturb its rest, the 3-headed king started howling in a maddened rage. That berserk sound rippled through the entire area like shockwaves. It was so strong that all the surrounding trees were toppled over due to its tremendous force. Holy sh*t. That's wild. Lin Fan's heart skipped a beat on seeing this scene. This azure celestial beast was extraordinary indeed. Even if Shu Wuxin were the one who had bumped into this, he would definitely have nowhere to run. That immense roar caused the righteous party to wake up in fright. Sha Zehua was breaking out in cold sweat. The power that was wielded by this single roar was really unbearable. This was evidently an incredible beast. Wake up, an enemy's approaching. That earth-shattering roar was like thunder that was exploding right beside their ears. It was no wonder that Sha Zehua was getting nervous. What's the situation? Mu Liang, who was dreaming of playing together with his tribesmen, woke up in a shock as well. He was especially alert upon hearing that an enemy was approaching, and had gripped his weapon tightly in a combat-ready state. Where's the enemy? Everyone looked around at their peaceful surroundings. There was no enemy at all. Rawrrrrrrr. Suddenly, everyone could hear that massive roar booming out from a distance, along with the sounds of the trees toppling over. They were extremely bewildered, unable to figure out what was happening. Where's Big Brother Lin? Could he be over there? Sha Zehua lowered his head deep into thought for a moment before beckoning to the rest of them, all of you, follow me. Lin Fan eyed the ancient beast before him. He had not expected this azure celestial three-headed king to be so tricky to deal with. He had thought that its fighting strength would definitely be lowered after a head was knocked out. But Lin Fan was starting to discover that that wasn't the case at all. The massive paw of that three-headed king kicked out into the void. This ferocious strike left a five-toed imprint, as though the entire void had been ripped apart by it. Lin Fan leapt backward immediately and flung his arm in a circular motion. He had tried going on against this three-headed king head-on earlier on, but that left this arm of his, which was wielding the eternal axe, extremely sore. The power of every single strike was massive, as though it contained the power to devastate both heaven and earth. Azure Celestial middle level indeed. This was definitely something not to be underestimated. The three-headed king used that sharp claw of his to pat at his slumped head. Its face was bewildered. Why the hell was his head giving no reaction at all? Peok, peok. The three-headed king slapped his head back and forth. Still no reaction. The other two heads stuck out their tongue and licked its middle head. But that too was to no avail. Roar. It started roaring madly once more. The gaze of the three-headed king was fixated on this fella before it. It knew that this guy must have been the reason why its middle head was unconscious right now. Damn it. God damn it. Lin Fan looked at the current state of the three-headed king and giggled, three-headed weirdo. You don't have to continue licking. Anything that has been struck by yours truly's brick would be knocked out for an entire minute. Even if the skies were to topple right now, you still wouldn't be able to lift that middle head up. Lin Fan knew that he had to seize this opportunity to take down this beast. To think that it was so ferocious despite having a single head down. If that head were to wake up as well, wouldn't this beast be even more formidable? The three-headed king continued howling. Those two front claws of it slammed down on the ground with tremendous force, causing the ground to crack out densely. PSHEW. Suddenly, the three-headed king disappeared right before Lin Fan's eyes. That speed caused Lin Fan's brows to crease, as his focus intensified. Wasn't the speed of that three-headed king way too fast? That wasn't the speed of tearing through the void. It was just his physical body's speed. Just then, a dangerous aura appeared right before Lin Fan. The towering figure of the three-headed king appeared suddenly, as its claws were already pummeling downwards. Holy sh**t. That's crazy. Lin Fan managed to react in time and sent a retaliatory swing of his axe. Bam! With Lin Fan as the center, a tremendous force burst out in all directions. That firm and resolute ground of the ancient saint world began to sink down harshly, creating a deep trench. Just as Lin Fan was about to return the favor, a sharp claw swung over to the side of his body. Not good, Lin Fan exclaimed in shock. Eternal immortality. At this point, Lin Fan could only bear with it and take on the blow. Suddenly, a burst of light that resembled glass erupted out from that comparatively small body of Lin Fan's. Bam! Receiving this claw of the three-headed king, 5 sharp wounds appeared on Lin Fan's body. At the same time, fresh blood began to gush out in all directions. Tens of miles away, Lin Fan struggled to steady his body as he glared at this three-headed king warily. I've been careless. To think that an Azure Celestial middle-level beast would be this strong. I've really bitten on more than I can chew now. Lin Fan wiped his chin to remove the blood stains. At the same time, Blood Sea was churning furiously. The blood that was gushing out was already beginning to reverse its direction back into Lin Fan. At the same time, those deep wounds on Lin Fan's body were beginning to regenerate. Ding! Eternal Immortality Experience points plus 1000. That was some good stuff. To think that you could catch yours truly totally off guard like that. You should be proud of yourself, being a rarity amongst the other beasts that I've met. Back in the Xuanwang world, no other beast could injure Lin Fan like this. Seemed like he had truly met a strong foe in the ancient saint world. Given the current progression of the beasts that he knew, it wasn't hard to believe that something like the big ancient demon could exist among these ancient beasts. Just the power difference between an Azure Celestial middle level and Azure Celestial lower level alone was extremely significant. Seems like yours truly have truly looked down upon you guys. The fact that Lin Fan had killed Shu Wuxin, who was an Azure Celestial lower level, back when he was an Earth Celestial full cultivation being had filled him with immense confidence. However, he could not help but admit right now that ancient beasts were truly way stronger than the other races. RAWRRRRRR. The three-headed king roared angrily at Lin Fan with an arrogant pose. It was as though he was mocking Lin Fan to know his place as a human. Hey! Suddenly, Lin Fan's fighting intent rose once more. Three-headed weirdo, don't you dare go overboard. Yours truly was only careless just now. Soon, yours truly will show you what true fear is. Suddenly, Lin Fan heard the commotion in the surroundings and felt exasperated. He had still managed to wake them up eventually. Sha Zehua and the others had caught sight of Lin Fan's figure far from a distance. When they arrived at the scene and caught sight of the three-headed king, they exclaimed out. It's the three-headed king. Brother Lin, watch out. This three-headed king belongs to a bloodline of the rulers of the ancient beasts. Therefore, it's way stronger than any common beast. Sha Zehua reminded Lin Fan cautiously. Alright, got it. Don't come over, guys. I'll have a go at this beast. Lin Fan glared at the three-headed king carefully while calling out to the rest of them. Lin Fan finally understood. It wasn't because the ancient beasts were much stronger. It was just that he had bumped into an elite ancient beast. This was an ancient beast with an enhanced bloodline. Seemed like there were still many things he did not know about. Chapter 478. That's how treacherous I am. Chapter 478. That's how treacherous I am. Sha Zehua had no idea how his brother Lin had managed to rile up this three-headed king. He was feeling helpless at the moment. He direly wanted to lend a hand, but knew that even if all of them from the righteous party were to join in, they would barely be able to do anything at all. But, something was causing them to feel bewildered. Just what in the world was going on with that middle head? Why did it look so listless, as though it was hanging dead? Lin Fan looked at the three-headed king. He had two options right now. The first was to give it his all and take down this three-headed king. The other was to make use of the chance to level up his eternal immortality. But, there was still a lingering issue on his mind between these two options. What should he do once the middle head wakes up from its slumber? If the middle head's awakening were to cause this beast's power level to spike up once again, then that would be quite the tragedy to behold. After thinking for a moment, Lin Fan decided. Everything should play by the safe route for now. Firmament. The eternal axe was flung out. Shining brightly, it tore through the void spiraling towards the three-headed king. Three-headed and six-armed faceless sky demon. Firmament sword. All of you, disturb his rear. Lin Fan's methods of engagement these days were starting to get more and more shameless. Since he might not necessarily win by fighting head-on nowadays, he would just slam them from the sides then. So as to secure the victory, all sorts of methods were being produced from Lin Fan's brains these days. Lin Fan had long discovered an issue. The way that everyone attacked and fought were too rigid and by the books. To Lin Fan, those ways of combat would most definitely fail to unleash one's utmost potential. Now that Lin Fan's firmament sword had been infused with the sword will from his will of the sword, it was an extremely formidable skill. Even some of the people from the sword world themselves might have to bow down in acknowledgement of his capabilities. The movements of the three-headed and six-armed faceless sky demon were extremely swift. Those three expressions on those three faces represented three different types of powers. As Lin Fan raised the skill level of faceless sky demon, its power grew even stronger. But for him to attain an exceptionally high state of cultivation for faceless sky demon would still require some time. PSHEW. PSHEW. Upon receiving Lin Fan's orders, every single sword will that was flung out by the faceless sky demon was aimed at the anus of the three-headed king. For a beast of this cultivation state, the physical body state would definitely not be that weak. Therefore, to play it safe, Lin Fan had decided to attack at the spot where he had the most confidence. All chop, cleaving out with his eternal axe, Lin Fan clashed against those massive claws of the three-headed king. The three-headed king's razor-sharp claws shone brightly. Even the damaged eternal axe could not chop them off. That only served to have Lin Fan's appraisal of this beast rise even further. Leader, isn't Big Brother Lin way too strong? To think that he could hold up against the three-headed king like this. Looking at this earth-shattering battle before him, Mu Liang exclaimed with his jaws agape. That's right, even though the cultivation state of the three-headed king is only at Azure Celestial middle level, in reality, it is an existence that's even stronger than an upper level due to its bloodline. Duan Meng remarked. These are the types of battles that true men should engage in. He Chenggen commented with envious eyes. He was a man from the war world, where there were countless wars breaking out everywhere. And in fact, the wars only grew stronger over time. Therefore, it was no doubt that He Chenggen would be jealous of this intense battle breaking out right before him. He wished that he could head up there and join in the fight personally. But at the same time, he knew that he probably wouldn't even last a single second on the battlefield. Seeing the sight before him, Sha Zehua's inner heart had long ascended up into the heavens. He had not expected Brother Lin to truly be so sick. There were, in fact, a couple of times when he had thought that it was over after his brother Lin was struck down by the three-headed king. But each and every time, his brother Lin stood back up with great vigor. It was then that he realized it was all just assumptions on his part. Just how strong was the physical body state of his brother Lin? If it were him, he would have long been mutilated into parts by that ferocious claw of the three-headed king. Roar! A maddened holler boomed out of the mouth of the three-headed king. It was thoroughly incensed right now. There was this thing behind him that was like a specter. Furthermore, each time that apparition struck out, his body would be struck with yet another attack. The anus of the three-headed king was especially sore by now. Each time this human struck out to engage him from the front, that sharp sword would suddenly appear and pierce out at his precious anus. Intolerable. Suddenly, the three-headed king could feel some sensation stirring up from its middle head. It was as though it was about to awaken from its unconscious state. Not good. 1 minute's about to be over. That look of anticipation on the other two heads must mean that something bad is about to happen. Lin Fan had been observing the expressions of this three-headed king, and concluded with this explanation. If the three-headed king knew of the human's thoughts, it would definitely howl out in rage. Your Majesty's face is absolutely ferocious and poker. How the hell could you tell? Three-headed weirdo, take my axe. Lin Fan pushed hard and rocketed violently with both his feet, causing a dust cloud to form behind him. That level of speed was astonishing. Bam! The claw of the three-headed king struck out once more, clashing against Lin Fan's eternal axe. A massive amount of energy burst out from the clash. Stab his anus. With him being engaged in combat, Lin Fan's heart leapt with joy. If yours truly couldn't strike it down from the front, he would use his sword will to stab at its anus, causing it an unrelenting pain. But just then, the slumped middle head of the three-headed king opened its golden gaze, as an immense aura burst out from him. Lin Fan's face changed. The three-headed king had turned stronger once more. The three-headed king glared at the human before him, after which, the middle head did a 180-degree turn and looked at its rear. Opening its wide mouth, it shot out a sonic boom. Under the pressure of this sonic boom, the three-headed and six-armed faceless sky demon, who was busy stabbing the anus of the three-headed king, disintegrated and disappeared from the heaven and earth. The three-headed king's anger was beyond this world at this moment. Now that its full powers had returned, it had to make this human pay the price. But just as the imposing middle head made its 180 degrees turn back to the front, a red flash appeared before its face once more. To think that this human had shamelessly tossed his weapon down at the claw, causing it to slap out into the air for nothing. Invincible big red brick. All SLAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA consciousness once more. The three-headed king cried out wildly as its claws swiped out furiously. It was determined to tear this human apart. Ugh! Looking at how its claws had finally pierced through the chest of the human, the three-headed king revealed a devious smirk. Brother Lin, Big Brother Lin. Seeing this scene, everyone from the righteous party could not help but scream out. They could not believe that this would be the final outcome. Now that Lin Fan was pierced through by the three-headed king, the only outcome left for him was death. Ah, I'm gonna die. No, please don't eat me, Lin Fan cried out tragically. Immediately, in less than a second's time, both his legs fell limp as his eyes closed shut, with his tongue sticking out. He couldn't be any deader than this. The three-headed king hollered out with an earth-shattering howl. It was declaring the outcome of this battle. Anyone who went against him would only have death awaiting them. The three-headed king moved its claws nearer to its face. It had to take a good look at this human. At the same time, this fella had just reminded him not to eat up his body. But this guy had riled up your majesty. How could your majesty not eat him up? As for those ants in the distance, the three-headed king wasn't interested in the least bit. However, if they decided to try anything funny, it wouldn't mind devouring them up as well. B*****, I'll take revenge for my big brother Lin. Mu Liang was riled up. He was ready to go fight it out with the three-headed king. Don't be brash. Do we look like we can go up against it? We'll just be throwing our bodies at him. Highs. Mu Liang was filled with indignance, but there was nothing he could do. The three-headed king moved its claws nearer to its face to take a closer look at this human it had just pierced through. It wanted to see his final tragic state before devouring him whole. But just at that moment, the initially happy three-headed king was suddenly stunned, as though it couldn't react quick enough due to the shock. To think that the fella, who couldn't get any deader than this, would open his eyes and grin at itself. All SLAPPP. Lifting up his 9-5 legendary brick, Lin Fan slapped down towards the head of the three-headed king. With this distance, all he needed to do was to stretch out his hand. Peok, peok, it fainted over immediately, but even before it fainted, the three-headed king could not make out or understand how this guy wasn't dead. HMPH, insolent, yours truly had just merely employed his innate, Oscar Best Actor, capabilities to trick you for a little bit. You've really got no brains indeed. Lin Fan tossed his head as his long hair swayed with the wind. He did not mind that body of his that was pierced through in the least bit. After all, the only thing that mattered was how majestic and suave he should look right now. Chapter 479, Bloodline of the Three-Headed King. Chapter 479, Bloodline of the Three-Headed King. But of course, this wasn't the time to be overly indulging in his own perfection in acting skills, now that there were so many people watching him, coupled with the fact that his body was pierced by the claw of the three-headed king. One must first and foremost take utmost care of their image. Drip, drip, being pierced dangling in the air by the claw and watching his own blood dripping down, Lin Fan could not help but sigh. This blood sea is truly incredible. Coupled with the mythical parasol tree, this is just an existence that defies all rules of the heavens. It's rare for someone to still be alive if they were in my current state. Lin Fan grabbed those razor-sharp claws and used his strength to pull his own body out of it. Holy sh*t. That stings. Lin Fan struggled for quite a while. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't pull himself out. Just what sort of a magnetic pull did the claws of the three-headed king possess? To think that yours truly was even using all the strength he had gained from sucking the milk of his mother's TTS. Looking at the three slumped heads of the three-headed king, Lin Fan knew that sh*t would hit the roof if these three were to wake up. Oi, oi, come and help pull me out of this, guys. Lin Fan called out to all the dumbstruck people far in the distance. He had been trying his best, but he just couldn't get himself out of this mess. The true tragedy would really ensue the moment this three-headed king woke up. The righteous party had long been petrified by now. Their hearts felt as though they had just gone through a roller coaster ride. Up and down, it was an immense ride of incomparable excitement. Initially, all of them had thought that Lin Fan was dead for sure. After all, he had received such serious wounds, so how could he still be alive? But the scene that followed truly had them dropping their jaws and exclaiming wildly about the wonders of life. What are you guys spacing out for? Come and help me out. Lin Fan called out to them once more. Big brother Lin, I'm coming. Mu Liang was the first to jerk out of his stupor. He then darted out towards Lin Fan. The speed at which he did so could be considered astonishing. Brother Lin, we're all coming. Sha Zehua turned into a light streak and dashed over as well. All right, on my orders. 1, 2, 3, pull. With people pulling on all four of his limbs, everyone tugged with all their strength. Plop, blood gushed out like a fountain. Just a single look at this sight could totally cause one's heart to swoop in fear. Ayo, Lin Fan clutched at his chest, sensing this numbing pain. Even though he wasn't dead, the pain was every single bit real. Brother Lin, just what in the world is going on? Mu Liang asked in bewilderment. To think that his mental fortitude could still be so strong after being pierced by the claws of that three-headed king. Wasn't that beyond amazing? Lin Fan looked at Mu Liang and grinned. This was practically nothing. If Lin Fan were to tell him that he could revive from even a single drop of blood, all of them would practically be shocked to death by yours truly. Let's not talk about this first. All of you stand back. The three-headed king isn't dead yet. I'm going to take him down first. Lin Fan waved his hand dismissively. The moment all of them from the righteous party heard that the three-headed king wasn't dead yet, their hearts took yet another leap. They had initially thought that the three-headed king had already been taken down. To think. Lin Fan churned his blood sea. At the same time, the mythical parasol tree within his body was emanating a boundless amount of life force, regenerating his wounds. That single claw by the three-headed king had given his eternal immortality a huge chunk of experience points. This could be considered to be equal parts misfortune and fortune. Everything was worthwhile now. Lin Fan kicked at the three-headed king. Yours truly has already told you, three-headed weirdo. Stay humble, but you just refused to listen. See, do you believe how strong yours truly is now? Do you really think that yours truly couldn't take you down? Yours truly was just messing around with you. Now that he had recovered, of course, Lin Fan would not forget about his acting sprees. After all, the three-headed king has long lost his consciousness. No matter how Lin Fan kicked at him, he wouldn't cry out at all. But, this low-profile act by Lin Fan caused a huge amount of stirring in the hearts of the righteous party members. Big brother Lin is exceptional indeed. Look at that calm grace that's emanating from him. One can hardly ever get that in this world, man. Mu Liang praised. I've really got to admit that I'm not as strong as brother Lin. The three-headed king is of a noble descent amongst the ancient beasts, and is extremely ferocious. To think that it was rendered totally useless in the hands of brother Lin. Sha Zehua commented. Listening to these compliments from everyone around him, Lin Fan's heart was blossoming. This was the type of effect he had wanted. If one didn't live life just to bullshit, what else should one live life for? But looking at the situation now, it was time to take in the three-headed king. Looking at the three heads of the three-headed king, Lin Fan then headed over to pick up his eternal axe. Lin Fan should probably be the only person in this world who could throw around a legendary weapon just like that. This eternal axe was really way too hideous looking. None of them could tell that this was a legendary weapon that Lin Fan was wielding. Otherwise, if they knew that Lin Fan had casually tossed away a legendary weapon as though it was free, they would have definitely spat out a mouthful of old blood. Now, three-headed weirdo, you've got to understand that yours truly has got no other choice but to kill you. It's really tough for me to live in this ancient saint world as a lone human, you know. If I don't work hard at increasing my own strength, who knows when I would be chopped down by someone, one fine day. When yours truly becomes the utmost being of this world one day, I'll make sure to take good care of your kind. Before killing this beast, Lin Fan stood before the three-headed king and made a slight prayer. All chop, thud, three gigantic heads flew up spiraling into the skies like a beautiful stream of fireworks before gradually landing onto the ground. And just like that, the high and mighty three-headed king of a noble descent died without even knowing how it died. Ding! Congratulations on killing ancient beast noble three-headed king. Ding! Experience points plus 20,000. Ding! Congratulations on obtaining three-headed king bloodline. Three-headed king bloodline. Noble amongst the ancient beasts, this bloodline is extremely pure. Able to be used for pill cultivation, consumption, or infusion within the demon city. Lin Fan was surprised to think that he would obtain a free bloodline out of killing an ancient beast noble. This was amazing. Infuse. Lin Fan tossed the three-headed king's bloodline within the demon city. Just then, the lifeless pupils of the big ancient demon within the demon city sparkled with a glimmer. Opening its big mouth, it swallowed the entire bloodline whole into its tummy. Suddenly, the demon city underwent a change. The aura of the big ancient demon began to emit out gradually, encompassing the entire demon city completely. This phenomenon had Lin Fan stumped for a moment. Could it be that the fastest way for the demon city to break out of its semi-finished, pseudo-legendary weapon state was by consuming the bloodlines of the ancient beast nobles? Upon understanding this fact, Lin Fan was filled with even more confidence. The entire demon city was based on the big ancient demon's body as a foundation. Therefore, if it wanted to break through to turn into a true legendary weapon, it would have to cause the bloodline of the big ancient demon to be activated entirely. And with the current situation, it did seem like the bloodline of these ancient beast nobles could work to activate the bloodline of the big ancient demon. Seemed like he would have to start gathering more of these bloodlines in the future. For the sake of turning stronger, Lin Fan was willing to endure this arduous task. Not good. Suddenly, Sha Zehua exclaimed in shock. What's wrong? Lin Fan was startled, not knowing what had just happened. Brother Lin, we've got to go. This three-headed king is of noble descent, and their bloodlines are interconnected. Now that it's dead, all members of its kind must be able to sense it as well. If we continue staying here, we'll definitely be in danger. Sha Zehua explained. Then what are we waiting for? Let's scram. Lin Fan sprinted off without hesitation. Holy sh*t. Gotta be shish-tting him. This three-headed king alone was so damn strong. Who knew how much stronger his fellow nobles would be? What if his dear wife, daddy or mommy came rampaging over? What would they do then? Chapter 480. Hunted by the Ancient Beast's Daddy. Chapter 480. Hunted by the Ancient Beast's Daddy. Roar rrrrrrr. Within the dense patch of forest, a howl that was even more ferocious than that of the three-headed king rang out. Who was it that killed my obedient little child? This three-headed king was a few times larger than the three-headed king earlier on. And this here was apparently that beast's father. Shah Zehua was right. The bloodlines of the ancient beast nobles were interconnected. The ties were even deeper in a father-son relationship. This three-headed king right here was extremely berserk. A single howl could cause the entire heaven and earth to rattle. In fact, in a radius of 100 miles, no other ancient beast would dare to even make a single peep right now, as they were all trembling uncontrollably in fear. Beasts of an extremely high cultivation state gained the ability to speak. This three-headed king looked similar to his son. However, on those three heads were 6 pitch-black curved horns. Those horns shimmered brightly under the moonlight, looking ever more menacing under the night sky. Even if it's to the depths of this world, I'll seek vengeance for my son. Boom! Suddenly, the three-headed king disappeared from its initial spot, as though it was trying to track down the murderer using its bloodline connection. By the time this three-headed king had arrived at the scene of the crime, Lin Fan and the others had long fled. My son. Looking at the three heads on the ground, this three-headed king was furious to no ends. Just WHO in the world was it. To think that he wouldn't even leave his body whole. My dear son, you've died a horrible death. Looking at how the three heads were the only thing left of his child, the three-headed king howled in anguish. This roar that was filled with immense vigor shot through the clouds, causing the entire sky to ripple out. Lin Fan, who had long escaped thousands of miles into the distance, stopped in his tracks. His heart skipped a beat on hearing that ferocious howl. Holy sh*t. Thank goodness I ran off in time. The next time I bump into an ancient race noble, I must definitely make sure I run off without wasting time. Lin Fan patted his chest in relief. This was a really exciting feeling right now. Brother Lin, I've noticed that you've kept the body of that three-headed king. Remember that you must never ever take it out. Ancient beasts are the best at bearing grudges. The moment they sense the bloodline, they would definitely appear right before you. Shah Zehua reminded Lin Fan. He was truly afraid right now. Who knew when his brother Lin might decide to take out the body of that three-headed king to inspect in a moment of exuberance one day? If that happened, they would be tracked in a matter of seconds. Now that would truly be tragedy. Huh, Lin Fan looked at Shah Zehua, stumped. You mean to say that I can't take out the body unless the other party is dead? That's right, unless you're already prepared with the mentality to go all out against the other party. Shah Zehua was really serious right now. Holy sh*t. Then wouldn't this thing just be rotting in my hands? Lin Fan was rendered speechless. He had wanted to chop down that sharp claw of the three-headed king to craft into a treasure. By the sounds of it, there was no hope of that happening right now. Highs. Lin Fan gave off a long sigh, expressing his exasperation. But wait, if yours truly could get stronger and lure that big boss over with this body so that he could chop that boss down, wouldn't things be great too? ... Time passed. Lin Fan and the other members of the Righteous Party were actively working in this area. No one else in the Righteous Party had a system, of course. Therefore, they had to make use of peaceful cultivations to level up. As for Lin Fan, all he needed to do was to kill beasts. Along the way, Lin Fan took down quite a number of ancient beasts. However, most of them were of low cultivation states. Now that he didn't have the strongest buff any longer, the experience points gained had dropped by a significant amount. The highest cultivation states of the beasts that he had bumped into along the way were of Earth's celestial full cultivation state. If this were in the past, Lin Fan would have definitely laughed himself silly. However, none of it mattered now. As an Azure Celestial lower level, these Earth Celestial full cultivation beasts no longer brought him that many experience points. Even Azure Celestial lower level beasts provided a pitiable amount. Highs, this damned system is really just forcing yours truly to fight against beasts higher than my own level. But oh well, FCK it. No matter what, the reason why I'm so damn powerful now is also thanks to the grooming of this system. With that, the time for the monthly ascension had arrived. Within this period of time, Lin Fan had gained quite a decent amount of experience points. At the same time, those members of the Righteous Party were now used to Lin Fan's way of training. While others entered cultivation mode, all he did was seek out beasts. He Chengen, who was of the war race, was especially admiring of Lin Fan. After all, it seemed as though Brother Lin's thirst for battles was even stronger than that of his tribesmen. Next day, Brother Lin, it's time to go. The time for the ascension has arrived. Shah Zehua had been waiting for this day for a long time now. He had never once touched on the idea of rescuing those who had just ascended. After all, these were dangerous operations. It was far from a simple task to rescue that amount of people from this district that was governed by the ancient race. All right everyone, be on your toes. Follow my orders. If I ask you to head north, you must never ever head south. If I ask you to act like you're dead, you must absolutely not breathe. Do you understand me? Lin Fan commanded the party. Yes, all of them stood upright. Towards Lin Fan's words, they were 100% obedient. In fact, even Sha Zehua was completely compliant to Lin Fan's commands. Lin Fan did not even need to employ his sub-profession of a trainer to train up these people. After all, yours truly was such a bedazzling character all by himself. The members of the Righteous Party had long been charmed by Lin Fan's dazzling brilliance. They were all completely entranced by that mighty image of his in their minds. Alright, let's go. Lin Fan swept his robes and led the way. All of the others followed with a burning battle intent. They knew that they were out to do something big today, something really big. The memory of his ascension was clear as day in Lin Fan's mind. After all, that was one hell of AFCK fest. To think that they would be captured the moment they had arrived, without any room for preparations or resistance. For any single person who had just ascended, a single ancient race tribesman from the ancient saint world had enough power to rule over their entire world, their entire heavens. He could even be their bloody ancestor. The difference in their power levels was as vast as the boundless seas. But those of them who were ascending this time around were blessed people. The great God of their lives had decided to descend down and receive them personally. These were people who were so lucky that others would envy them in the light of this. The area of ascension was a vast, empty, desolate ground. Dust clouds blew up in the desolate grounds. Far in the distance, there was a patch of green woods. That was the forest that Lin Fan had waited within after being rescued. Big brother Lin, why is nothing happening? Mu Liang asked curiously. Hush, don't speak, let us just wait and watch. Don't rush into this, Lin Fan whispered. Okay. A group of people hid between a gap in the valleys, carefully observing the situation up ahead. Those ancient race tribesmen who were here to capture the ascended beings were biding their time quietly somewhere in the valleys as well, as if they were just waiting for their praise to arrive. They're here. These people who had just ascended were filled with a dazed look on their faces. They did not know where they were. Afterward, just like Lin Fan did when he had just arrived, they entered that stretch of road between the valleys. Clang, what a pity. These people who had just ascended were caged by the ancient race tribesmen the moment they entered the valley. Down in the lower worlds, which one of these beings weren't the elites of their own races? They were naturally howling out wildly with their arrogant cries. But of course, they were nothing but ants in front of these ancient race tribesmen. These ancient race tribesmen could not be bothered in the least bit. Let's prepare to strike soon. Lin Fan had given it a quick scan. The leader of those ancient race tribesmen didn't have a high cultivation state. Killing him would be an easy task. Hold on. Suddenly, Lin Fan pressed down his hand. Within the void, another group of rescuers had arrived, just like back then when Lin Fan was rescued. Brother Lin, let us go give them a hand. Sha Zehua commented. No hurry, let's just observe first. Lin Fan replied calmly. Once again, as the mantis stalks the cicada, it is unaware of the oriole behind it. If these guys can pull this off, yours truly shall refrain from showing up this time around. But if they couldn't, then yours truly would valiantly appear on the scene.